say something to me, feel free. Otherwise, I will stream this and that and all the other things. Okay. Come on. Hey, there we go. Yep. Is that working? And can I get a chat? Do I even have a chat? Why do I not seem to have a chat? Oh, hey. There you are. Feel free to speak if you'd like. Don't feel like you have to. Right now, if I have it all set up properly, then nothing anyone says here is going out on stream. So we're good there. Oh my god, I'm getting terrible echo. Jeez. Is that you? Is that me? Yeah, that's you. Alright, let's see here. Okay. No, I was not a part of ORB. The ORB investors were asking me what was going on and what was happening, and somebody asked, what it would take for me to fix it. And I looked at it and was like, well, I can't fix it because it's locked up. Like, as in, there's no governance or anything. Yeah, I heard EMN rugged. Yeah, and I saw Andre's post about, like, oh, I put a thing in there to test for fraud, and then there was an exploit, and someone used it. Okay, this is why professionals don't test in prod. This is why we do testing. This is why we have several test nets. Are you really this fucking stupid, dude? Like, I don't understand. Well, I guess I do understand, but every answer I come up with is my favorite game, idiot or asshole. Either you were too fucking stupid to know what you were doing, or you're a fucking asshole pulling something. I don't know what. Hey! Hey, Kitty, what's up? Wanna help with that coin my buddy and I are making? Okay, well, with that one, alright, so for one, I will say, happy to help out with all kinds of stuff. Right now, very focused on getting the auditing platform done. This is done because I was affected by ORB. I did not read the code closely enough. I feel bad that I didn't read the code closely enough, and people took my little offhanded comment, like, I glanced at it. I let the FOMO get me. The FOMO got other people. So now, here I am trying to help out with the FOMO and address some of that. So this is where I'm starting off with my little tokenomics model here. So our idea, or at least my idea, is that we have a, I don't know, like an EFI core. It's not even really based on ORB anymore. I'm just kind of ditching ORB altogether. And that's entire model. I'm kind of taking the basic idea that it had, but really Core had the same idea. Like, I'll give us ETH, and then we'll go do all the trading necessary to make the exchange happen and have it show up. Okay, your background noise is terrible, and no offense, but that's gonna get a server mute. So I'm cool with people talking. Anything you say here isn't going out on streams unless people really want to, like, do something about that or whatever, but, I'm sorry. Random background noise, no. Alright, so, yeah, if you guys are just curious how I was gonna, like, what I was considering here, basic idea is that we've got, and I'm really trying to keep it simple here, so that way, we're not having to deal with anything too terribly complicated of what's going on. And here, no offense, I'll check in to see where you stand on that. Yeah, you're still terrible background noise. Alright, no offense. At me if you want to be unmuted and you fix your background noise. Okay, so, yeah, basic, oh my god. Okay, hold on. Let me just fix this. There we go. There we are. So, people coming in can be muted. You should be able to unmute yourself. Let me know if that doesn't work. But this will just work out default for how's that handling. Wait. can. But this is... yes, I believe that was the push to talk working. Okay, so, in here, that's where it'd be Unify Core Staking. Basic, come on. Unify Core. There we go. There. Unify Core Staking. Doc is the voice of an angel. Okay. I don't know who Doc is, but cool. Welcome, Doc. Neat. So yeah, like, pardon if I'm not as lively as I usually am. I'm going through design. This is me designing things. This is me putting stuff together. Thank you for meeting yourself. You can take it off. I just, like, did everyone do something about your various echoes and background noises and whatnot, because everyone that's come in here has had some background noise going on. I just can't deal with myself as an echo. It starts getting to me. Alright, so, here I am. There we go. Basic idea is that we're just going to build this on top of Core. Core's doing so well, but really what Core needs, and really what a lot of these things have, like, I'm real big on this long-term, reliable revenue. The problem is so many of them require some trading activity to come through them, and there's just not enough trading activity, or they try to pull some little thing on the side that they're not quite using, you know, they're not using properly. And so that's where I had the idea, well, I can take the tax idea that, like, Trib had. I can take the debasing idea as the buy and burn process like YF Beta's doing. I can layer this on top of Core with an EFI token, and the taxes that we're charging on this can go into a continual reserve and thus effectively be locked up. We're not going to permanently lock all the liquidity, so that way people can still buy out, but we're going to collect a tax on this, and as people sell back the EFI token, we're going to effectively burn it. But the idea is that rather than really burning and just transferring to address 0, like, say, Trib or some other tokens do, what I'm actually going to do is just debase the supply by taking the amount that they're selling back out of that. And then based on the relationship of the EFI token to the actual reserve of what it can pull out of Core, it will pull out of its reserve, like, okay, well, this is what you have. I'm going to pull that Core out of the reserve. I'm going to actually go and sell the Core back to the liquidity pool to get the Ethereum to then give you your Ethereum. So essentially it's keeping two supplies. And pardon if I'm a little selfish here for the charity, but the idea being is that rather than have a tax or percentage or anything that purely goes to the reserve, portions of that, like a small, like, we would take, say, the 10% tax, and then we would take, like, 10% of the 10% and move that over and put that in a reserve, or basically deposit that straight with the charity, my charity. And so that way we can kind of have this thing fund us and run that through. The main portion of the tax would go into that reserve where we're just holding on to. In fact, this thing would be every time somebody deposits, it would be, in addition to doing its process of staking into Core, it would collect whatever rewards it has coming, and the rewards it has coming, it takes the percentage off of that for the actual cash reserve, or sorry, for the reserve that the EFI token is pegged to, and the small portion that's going to go to the charity to help us keep funding all this. So, again, hope no one objects too much, but we could serenade you while I think that would be too much of a distraction if you serenaded me while I worked. But I'm hoping that through this process we can end up with a case where when anyone sells out, when they try to sell it back, we debase the currency, which should, at the next rebase cycle, cause it to expand back again, because there will have been processes building up that reserve. We'll keep funneling things through core every time it happens. And so basically it would be, well, actually, fuck it. That's what I should be doing. I should be diagramming, not talking. So, that would be the idea here. We'll have the core proxy, as they call it. There we are. Oh, hold on. Got a message from an employee. Okay. Anyone remember who that is? Jesus. I don't know why you thought that was necessary, but whatever. Hold on. What is this? Yeah, pardon. I got... One of the guys on my team needs a link to something, so just a second. I'll make him very happy and send him an IPFS link. I really wanted the IPFS links to the NFTs to work, but I don't know what the fuck is up with everyone and not having that spec. Why are you so fucking difficult? There we go. Hey, there we are. Alright. Pardon me as I take care of some business here and then get him that. There we go. Alright, well then. We'll just ban that person next time they show up. Thank you. I don't know why people have to be like that. Oh, I like that. Core chain. Okay, that's a good name. Alright, so we'll just call that core chain. Yes, that's an excellent name. Thank you. Alright, so, what core is doing basically is... There we go. Let's make that bigger. There we go. There we are. So, basically, what core is doing... And then over here we've got the, core... ETH... LP... Oops. UniLP. Alright, so, with that, essentially, how this normally works is... You send your ETH into core. Core splits that up. Now you have to get the LP tokens in there, but the idea, the genesis was you send in your ETH to core. Core then splits that and goes and gets that. Yep, no background noise. Core goes and gets that, splits that, buys some core off the LP, and then deposits that back in there. And then that's locked up. It's locked up in the... Jesus, people. Yeah, you're gonna fucking server mute until you fix your background noise. Don't give a shit. So, that's where were we? Oh yeah, so, then splits that and buys some core off the LP, and then, boom, deposits those. In the process of doing that, it locks up the core. That's why people are having that weird problem of... We had that little bug where we could effectively bounce the LP tokens out of core and back into your wallet, because technically it was keeping track of that, but you couldn't ever cash those out because under the hood the core token was blocking that transfer. And so that's where running this through, my idea is, well, when we claim the rewards off core, like here, if I load up core real quick. I hope everyone's liking the, when launch will be as soon as we're done with the testing. Hard to say exactly when that'll be. Okay, which guy is that? Hold on. Have we got a... Where's our dev? Where's our owner around here? Can we see where that is? Hold on. Downs and Jones? Downs and Jeremy, that was it, wasn't it? Alright, so... I'm just gonna ban Downs and Jeremy, thank you. Let's see. If anyone was wrong and that wasn't Downs and Jeremy, then oh well. Or Downs and Jerome, whatever. But they're fucking gone now. Moving on with our lives. So, again, I'm not the owner of this server. Wherever they are, then if you can make somebody a mod or something to deal with that sort of bullshit. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you appreciate that I'm working on this. So, like, the idea here is, you know, if you claim your reward here from core, then what you actually end up getting back is, if we look at it and pull up the transaction log, and we pull up the transaction log, it should be showing that we get back core and ETH out of it, which helps because then you have to sell the core back to the liquidity pool and therefore get to get all ETH. And so that helps drive a bit of the economic action that's sort of necessary to make these sorts of schemes work. And sorry, when I say scheme, I just mean profit plan, profit method. I don't really mean like scheme as in something nefarious, because, you know, obviously core isn't nefarious. So in this case, when we're doing that deposit, as you can see, it comes back with, you know, goes through, figures some shit out, and then figures out that balance and transfers some of that out. And so when you pull that out, like when I claim my reward there, oh, they updated it, so now the button disappears when you don't have that. Okay, cool. Then if I check the Etherscan for my wallet here, we should see that I've got, yep, there is that vault there, and what ultimately came out of it, yep, calculates the fee, pulls all that out, and boom, that's where I should have gotten the total amount back. Should have handled some of that transfer and should have taken some of that out and sent me core tokens. So, for example, if I look at Explorer, this one gives me a nice breakdown of transactions that have happened. I usually manage my account through Etherscan, Bloxy, and Explorer because at a certain point, you know, you're like, well, I have a hard time just keeping track of all the degen stuff I'm on because none of the other fucking tools keep track of it. That was not what I wanted. There it is. Here, I will pull this one up. There we go. Now this should find the right one. Alright, so if I do that, well, thank you. I appreciate that you will donate when that is the case. I will hopefully make this work. So yeah, here it is that in doing that, I, you know, can get some of that core back. Now this is me experimenting with the KIE supposed fix that was coming out. So yeah, that's where I should be getting some of that core back. And boom, there is some of my core. And so when it pulled that out, it was, originally you were able to get both core and ETH out if you're handling some of it. Now it's just giving you core back, and basically doing that by buying it back from the liquidity pool. Cool. So my idea is go ahead and let core do that. That's fine. I want to get Ethereum out of this, and what I can do is basically set up a case. Here, I will then, I think I'm going to need a core chain. Here, it'll be like this. Core chain ETH vault, I think. Alright, pardon as I put some of the pieces together. So, obviously, we've got our case here that when you deposit some, in this case, having to, yeah, there, in the, there, yep. When you want to get more, you have to come over here, buy some core, and then when attempting to buy in, oops, yeah, when attempting to farm that and buy in, you can claim or deposit, and off it goes. If I remember correctly, when you farm, let me double check which method is happening here. Just to be absolutely sure that I'm getting that right. You can always look through the code, but to be honest, I kind of just prefer to have the transaction log, and then I can more easily see what the hell's going on, you know? Alright, so just want to double check exactly what is happening over there, and see. And if I pull up Bloxy on this one, so yeah, pardon guys, this is not going to be a look in design ideas. There's design ideas? Oh, design ideas. Okay, cool. Oh, hey, you put a whole thing in here. Okay. The retirement yield system allows you to earn ETH based on your yield balance, and the current supply in the... And the current supply in the retirement yield treasury contract in a non-custodial manner. Here's how it works. When someone withdraws their staked stable coins from the yield staking DApp, a 1% of the yield generated is converted to ETH and stored in the retirement yield treasury smart contract. To put your portion of the... Oh, hey, cool. Neat. And they probably should have mentioned in there that they actually engaged me to audit them, and we have plans on launching their platform when we have our auditing platform done and able to run them through that. So, which we also plan to do right after we finish with Team Finance and get their stuff out, so that we can have a good integration for locking tokens. So, let me see here. Takes 1% of the yield generated is converted to ETH and stored in the retirement treasury smart contract to... I'm sorry, this is for anyone watching. This is an idea that Yeld is doing that someone's filled me in on what's going on there. So our rewards are not just core, it's a uni. No, your rewards are core. It's going through the process of essentially getting core back by pulling that out of some of the contracts and fairs. See, it's transferring to that. So it's quite literally going and seeing, okay, how much does the core proxy contract, the front controller would be called, is for in Uniswap. From there, it sees the balance that it has for the core token, then it transfers some core token, calculates the fee, works out that total supply there, burns, yeah, it looks like it burns some, and then checks the balance again, transfers some more to the vault, if I remember correctly, yep, for that amount, and then calculates that amount after that, and then boom, you get your core back. And then the intention being is you go sell it back to the liquidity pool to get your Ethereum out, which will affect the price of core and affect all of this going on. So that's cool and all, and I'm perfectly content with that going on, but I think it's a nice solution, and I'm not knocking it at all. It's actually pretty good. It solves a lot of the problems that like Trib had, in that it requires people to keep buying in order to keep going up, and if people stop buying in, then it's really just earning at the rate of M-stable. This is taking the stance of, no, you come in and you get it, and our entire reward process is not based on coming out of some, allotment that's reserved for staking rewards or anything. The whole point of this is that, no, we're going to get this by taking actual economic action, and in doing so, we're going to, I need to get them this, there we are. In doing so, it's going to help adjust and modify the price of core. And so I had a similar idea, actually. I was kind of building the same thing with EFI. So that's where, rather than have them come in with core and try to buy in that way, where they're trying to deposit that core in the platform here and thus, like we do that, trying to deposit core in the platform here, then, it can keep building and growing and building and growing. And that's lovely, but people still have to come back here and claim that and run that through. I think it might actually be easier if we had a EFI token that was pegged to that vault. And in this case, we're not necessarily going to... I'm still trying to decide whether or not we'll hold on to core or whether or not we'll hold on to ETH. I think actually we'll hold on to core, now that I say that, and thus can say we'll get that out. So let me clarify here. And this is where I've been talking with the core dev. They just seem really busy, and so they're intermittently responding. So hopefully I can get their attention and come back in. So here we are for back to the idea that Richie Rich was bringing up from Yeld. So this is reporting on what Yeld is doing from their article, and actually I hadn't talked to the Yeld guys yet to look at their code. They said they were still a ways off, so I had other things to get to. But in this case, it's a... like I was saying, whenever you stake your stable coins for the Yeld staking app, 1% of the yield generated is converted to ETH and stored in the retirement yield treasury smart contract. To get your portion of ETH based on your Yeld holdings, first you have to click the Snapshot Yeld Balance button in the Yeld dApp header to tell the smart contract how many tokens you currently hold. Alright, that's a thing you could do. I think I can improve on it so that you don't have to do that. To be clear for someone in the YouTube chat, somewhat ORB can't really be fixed because it's on autopilot. There's no way to make changes to it, and we can't pull in ORB either because that thing is just sort of fucked overall. Sorry, like it's so fucked entirely that there's really not a way to salvage what's going on there. Kind of like what's happened with Trib. Not Trib's fine, it doesn't have a bug or anything, but that like claim interest thing, I can see what they're doing. It's a trader trap to try to get people to engage with the contract, but it does require people to engage with the contract, and it does require people to keep depositing in. The idea here being is that all people have to do is pay ETH in, and then let it ride. And every time people pay ETH in, this thing just goes and churns around and does whatever it needs to. Also, whenever whenever anyone tries to realize that profit, it churns around and does whatever it needs to. And so that way, if people can keep buying in, then this thing will keep executing that economic action, kind of like what Core's doing, kind of like what Trib's doing, but without the ability to claim interest like that. The interest just goes into the vault and actually just kind of gets funneled again into Core. And that'd be kind of the point here, is that like every time someone buys in, we can only go through so many steps in the cycle each time. And we'd probably want to pause there where we hold on to some core and then boom, come back and buy that in. And so in looking at alright, that's the core token, and yeah, here it is. In the core proxy contract, if we look here, the idea, hold on. Core LP token sold OTC, and there's a balancer pool. Some bought it on half price to stake rather than mint new LP via Core ETH. Huh. I'm not sure what that is. Team Finance says that they should be releasing around mid-October, possibly near end of October. And that's roughly when Yeld is going to be releasing, and thus, boom, we're off to the races. I wasn't sure if you're responding to someone else or whether you're saying the core LP token sold OTC and there's a balancer pool. Some bought it on half price to stake rather than mint new LP via core ETH. Interesting. Okay. I was not aware that kind of crap was going on. Weird. No, it's fine. I wasn't, I was doing shit, so I didn't expect you to be aware that I was handling that. So yeah, in our model here for the proxy contract, when we come in, we could see that what happens when you click that claim, it actually runs this deposit here, and then that goes and talks to the core vault. So I can actually bring that core vault up over here. Yep. I don't know if I already had that here, but we'll get that in here. And yep, okay. And so we can confirm exactly what it's doing, so that way I can know if my little harebrained scheme is going to work. Alright, so in here, I know it always looks weird when it's showing the extra transaction hashes. This one is... Alright, safe math, address, safe ERC, enumerable set, yes, all that stuff. Standard libraries, initializable, cool, context upgrade, alright, we'll figure that out. Yeah, I know that is. That's for upgrading stuff. This is actually why Core is able to have a bug and then fix itself, is it actually built these layered contracts on top of each other and made use of these upgradable parts. And so if I head down, yeah, here it is, the core vault that it's using. I'll make that a little bigger. Pardon if I'm not working, if I'm not making it bigger and more readable for you guys. This is for me working. Where was I? Right, it's down here. And I was double checking. Ah, there we are. Alright, so when going through, yeah, there we are. So we have our add. Add a new token pool, can only be called by the owner. Alright, so there is a way to add more token pools. Interesting, they could build on that. There is the set, update the given pool's core allocation point, can only be called by the owner. Note, contract owner is meant to be a governance contract allowing core governance consensus. Cool. Yeah, there's the dev fee that's coming in. That's cool. They can get a fee. We'll collect one for the charity too. Pending core. Well, let me see here. Core update pool. Ah, here we are. Deposit. Deposit tokens to core vault for core allocation. Now, that's always the weird thing that, you know, here it is accepting that deposit, and over here it is also taking that deposit. That's why I find it kind of strange that they're calling it deposit. I kind of wish they had named it a different one. But this is really just intended to be a proxy contract that you can call and have configuration in. So that's why when you're needing to call the core vault, you have to go through the proxy contract, because technically this thing has control of the core vault. And that's why you're coming through here. That's also why it allows for that upgrade and everything. It's kind of a way to inherit a library, but not exactly. In this case, when it's going through, yeah, see there, it's transferring that amount to me here. And in that transfer, the transfer is calculating the fee, calculating total supply, and then, you see there, it's kind of burning, not actually burning some, it's sending some off. What is this address? Let me double check. Ah, yes, sending some off to a wallet address, and sending some more off to another wallet address. Which is fine, that's the dev, you know, it's supposed to be the dev and governance portion, so we're understandable there. It's not a cheat or anything. This is where it's finding out, you know, how much we have. It's transferring to, if I saw that correctly, C5CAB, 5A, let me confirm which one that is. Yes, that is also a wallet address. That would be more likely the dev, another portion managing that. Okay. And then calculating the amount after the fee, getting the total supply, and again, transferring some of those out, and then sending, boom, the portion back there. So it gave me my core up here, and in doing that, took out some of the tax there, and then taking out the tax, figured out what the total supply is, transferred that through, and boom, gets the rest. So the main point here being that when we go to get our core back, we are actually calling deposit. Not in there, so it's got to be over here. Okay, there we are. Whenever a user deposits or withdraws tokens to a pool, here's what happens. The pool's accurate core per share and last reward block gets updated. User receives the penny reward sent to his or her address. User amount gets updated. Reward depth gets updated. And then down, there's the deposit event that it throws. There's the deposit method and so on, and thus when you are calling deposit over... there are two deposit methods. I'm sorry, there's deposit and then deposit for, which would explain... Okay, that explains some of the structure there. Alright, so... Oh, pardon, haven't been keeping up on chat. Point is that there is a way for those that want to exit the project, even if liquidity is locked. They simply transfer LP token ownership by selling it on Balancer Pool via Balancer Air Swap. Yeah, that's where we end up with this kind of weird case that, like, the core LP tokens can weirdly act almost like a future on core, in that you can sell that and transfer them over to someone else and be done. That's kind of where I was hoping to build this on top of things, and then basically have this as... yeah, that's right. Okay. And basically have this as a new way to get into core. Like, you can always go deal with core yourself if you'd like, but you can always come through the core chain and then build it all together. So, anyway, I spent a bit of time going in there. The main point here is that to deposit core, and that's where, when you are interacting with core, if you have some, like here, if I go, yeah, I've got more in my wallet, and I've got some in claimable. If I go claim, it's... Where is the option to just deposit more core? Is that even an option? I can unstake the governance. There should be a way to just deposit more fucking core, right? That's what I'm getting here. Yeah, deposit there. You see the argument there. And so... yeah, defines the beneficiary, defines the way amount. Let me... see here. Yeah, throws the necessary events, and can't find that. Okay, interesting that I can't. Weird that Vloxy is having a hard time graphing this, but whatever. So, about 3.06 ETH for one core ETH LP right now. Wow. Well, you know, I'm kind of curious to see what's going on there. Pardon as I sidetrack a moment, but, you know, if there's this balancer thing here doing that, let me see what's going on. Okay, you got background noise, so we're done with that. Let me see what's happening here with this core LP. Does it even have the name? Not sure. We'll find out. Thank you for the news. I didn't know that was there. But it doesn't make sense that trade LP price is almost half the one to mint new LP when buying core and mint new LP if you can get LP directly at half price. What am I missing here? I think it's the difference between being able to realize your profit now and by Do you guys have a link to that balancer pool? Because I'd kind of like to go look at it and see what's up. My thought is that it's people trying to get all the way fuck out of core because they're just not thrilled with the idea that it's locked up, and they're like, I want to flip. I don't want to get a continual stream of revenue here. So they're trying to search after LP address. All right, well, then let me go find out where that is. Calculate amount after fee. Is this the Uniswap contract that's handling that? This is, yes, looks like that. Okay, so if I dig in here, I think is, I should be able to see, get core vault address. Wait, which one are you? Sorry, that's why I was trying to talk to the core dev, but like I said, they just seem to be busy, and I've been getting intermittent answers, so we'll see how that goes. Let's see here. But anyway, that's where the... Sorry, I was getting distracted from the Richie Rich question. Perfect, gave me a link to it. I appreciate that. There are 2 pools. Okay, cool. Thank you very much for helping me with that research there. Let's see what we can find in this case. Why are you being so difficult for me? Westbound. That's... The exchange has been upgraded to use multipath routing, which includes... Okay. Well, that's where it has the entry there, so... Why are you being so... Oh, I don't want to... So let you do that. Let's try this. Ah, there we go. Shows the Uni V2. Should have a better name. Let me go look up the add liquidity with that and see what it shows. So I'm just curious now that you said it. I'm like, I'm wondering what's going on. Yes, here we are. So yeah, one, they're collecting a 9% swap fee, so they're, whoever's staked into this is getting a decent return. On top of that, it's showing that it's a 50-50, and so, yeah, like I said, I'm thinking this is some people that just want to get the hell out of core, and they don't want to have to keep, collecting that interest back, and so they're using this as a way to say, here, you can take the future interest this would earn, the future returns this would earn. I don't want to deal with it anymore. I just want to get something that I can flip and go over. So, boom, there you go. As far as that one, there's another one here, but that also... yes, go to site. Sorry, that's what I get for copying out of there. Okay, yeah, here it is. And that's where in here... Is that the same as what I found over here? No, that is not the same as what I found over there. Alright, so let me go and try to find to add the liquidity here. Nope, so that one's there. Let me see what this one says. Yeah, exactly. Just free market. Yeah, that's not like, it's... People do what they want to do. Some people are like, I don't want to get this return forever. I'd rather just cash out and move on with my life. I don't know. I'm not finding a second pool. I'm only finding that one, so I don't know. Maybe the other one got drained somehow? I don't think that was really possible, but whatever. Anyway, I was not here to dig into that. I was here to try to finish and fixing a way to resolve this. Not that it, not exactly this, because we can't really save orb, I'm sorry guys, there's not much I can do. But I think this is something that can help replace some of that, and you guys can have something to stake into and hopefully get some returns. So there is, yeah, it's LP ETH tool. Yeah, I found that. I was just saying, you'd mentioned there were 2 pools, and like I'm not finding another pool. So there you go. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just not finding it, and to be honest, I should just finish designing this. So just finish the point with Richie Rich was bringing up. To get your portion of ETH based on your yield holdings, first you have to click on the snapshot yield balance. button in the yield app or in the yield app header to tell the smart contract how many tokens you currently hold. After 1 day or more, you'll be able to click on the Redeem Retirement Yield button, which will check your current yield balance and see if it's the same or higher as when you created the snapshot. You will get ETH. This way, you earn ETH only after holding your yield tokens for 1 day or more. How much you get depends on what percentage of the yield total supply you hold and the current pool balance. If you create a snapshot and the next day you have less yield tokens than when you made the snapshot, you won't be able to redeem your retirement yield either. This is the guarantee that users hold the exact balance or more than they've snapshotted, rewarding serious holders. Okay, I can see that. Alright, I can see that as a benefit. So let me start with a basic model, and then we can see about how to fit that in. That is a good idea to build on top of that. I do like that. So, yeah, and how there's a secondary market for LP tokens. Like, I love that too. You know, I love the fucking free market, man. Like, capitalism's fantastic. I love how people have the freedom to just figure things out. So, yeah, cool. All pooled ETH and Core to make Core chain gas free. We'll have to consider that. Right now, let's focus. These are all great ideas. I'm not saying no. I'm just saying let me get back to the basics of the design, and then we can iterate on that. So this is what in software development we would call the basic proof of concept. Not even, or maybe even minimal viable product, as in this is the bare minimum of what we need. So again, in this process, the idea being, I'm a little lost on how to buy into Core again now. Like, I go get Core, and then what? Like, I click claim, and it takes that. Could I just, like, send more Core in? Here, if I do this, let me try this. Hold on. Well, no, wait. If I do claim, then it doesn't give me an ability to... Yeah, I'm calling function, and I'm calling deposit, and it's having me send in the type there. I don't see how I could... Am I missing something here? Like, where do I just put my fucking tokens, you know? Like, I want to, like, if I want to just buy in again, what the hell would I do? Let's see. Oh, I need to have LP tokens in wallet. Ah, got it. That's kind of what I was thinking. Alright, thank you. I appreciate for the clarification there. Let me go fix that. And let me get some LP tokens so then I can have that to then understand what we need. So thank you very much for assisting me with that while I was trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Kind of lost track of this project, and as you see, they changed things a bit. So, yep, there we go. Okay, cool. I do have some LP tokens. So... let me see. Let me go ahead and add. And I've got some basic core. Go ahead and add that in. And there we go. Whoops. Off it goes. So I'll be buying in with my rewards of core at this point by staking that back in. And then we'll come back over to the Core app once this is finished and confirm that, yes, I can restake. I'm not saying I don't believe you, I just want to actually do it, you know? So, here, connecting my MetaMask. Aha! There it is. Stake. Got it. So, I can stake that, and boom, off it goes. Cool. Thank you very much for clarifying that. That also will give me the transaction log to then properly track what is happening when we stake. Because that is kind of the point of what I'm trying to do here, is I want people to be able to send in ETH, and from sending in ETH, I want to be able to split that. Basically, I'm going to replicate what the Core was originally doing, where it was splitting it, buying, and putting that through, and then, boom, off it goes, and let that churn over. So people will unstake when APY is not great and add liquidity to balancer pool if fees pay better. Yeah, it is kind of interesting. Since I said the last time, alright, to clarify, not working on YF Beta, working on YFMS. YF Beta, I have reached out to the dev to check in on them, see if they'd like any assistance or anything. They're I don't know. They're like mini devs around here. They just don't respond very much. Everyone seems to be really fucking busy with their own stuff, and I don't know, just not quite like picking up on the I want to help you. Like, could you take some time and give me some undivided attention so I can find out how to help you? So anyway, wow, 6 ETH per core. This thing is just jumping, isn't it? All right, so got that. Got the transaction log here for depositing in on that case, and can look it up in Bloxy to get some good info on how this functions. So, pardon if I got my views split between YouTube and the Discord to keep track of that. If Coyote fixes this like he saved core, I will send 2 ETH. Alright, so to be clear, I don't want to get the expectations too high. I can't fix ORB, to be very clear. Like, there's the flaw is in the contract. There is no way to modify the contract. What I can do is develop a good alternative that people can make use of. And I'm layering that on top of core, and I'm learning from the lessons of Trib and core to determine that deposit for this, deposit there, balance of... Okay, so when I got that transaction, why do I not see a staking option? Ah, that's it. Okay, so I deposited here, then I deposited here, then it's add liquidity ETH. Okay, so that's where... Oh, God. I wish these things would keep track of the transactions as one big, long thing, you know? It's not the fault of core here. I mean, it's not them. It's just the annoyance of how all of this operates. It's a Ethereum thing. It's just fucking aggravating. Alright, so this is old. Yeah. And so that's where... I always have too many tabs open and never keeping track well enough. So let me try that again. Alright, so in here, I've got, yep, add liquidity ETH there. Yep, that should be the right one. And so if I bring this up, here we go. Yep, that's exactly what it's doing. So yeah, it's going from my wallet to Uniswap for that. Pulling that in. God damn it. Why do people have to be like that? Like, I swear to God. Or maybe that wasn't the same thing as the last guy who was just being a troll. Sorry. I know it's knee-jerk reaction. I apologize if that wasn't trolling. Not that I got like a serious problem with trolling, but it's like, come on, guys. If you're gonna be destructive, at least like be original and fucking funny about it, you know? So, where was I? Right. Going through here. Oh yeah. For there, when came on like the big rug pull that happened, Andre Cronje audited EMN rug pulled. I don't think he audited it. From what he said on Twitter, he was working on a game and trying to work in like a gamified version for the finance thing. He explained what he said happened, but he's like, he deployed code in dev that wasn't done yet, didn't have the proper controls in place, and wasn't properly tested, and so they're working on fixing it. But I'm like, dude, you need to be more careful. This is why professionals don't test in prod. I mean, we joke about testing in prod, but it's a fucking joke. We don't actually do it. For fuck's sake. Like, most of my work on any contract, well, not even most of the work, like, the first thing I do on any contract is setting up all the automated testing and verification and everything. So it's like, what the fuck are you doing? You know, there's entire businesses built around not doing that kind of shit. So, I don't know what the fuck is up there. Anyway, so, yeah, deposits that there, and in doing that, why did I get the liquidity back? Alright, so either way, the point being is, if I get ETH, then I have to go get Core and ETH to then get the liquidity pool token to then stake into the contract. So that clarifies something for me here, where I needed to make sure what we're dealing with. So the idea here being is that you would come in with ETH, and we're just going to start with ETH to make lives easier. That way you don't have to try to figure out too much stuff. Also, I talked Jeff from the church, who's been volunteering and helping out there. Not a member, believer, or follower, but you know, he's been helping out. He's the guy I've been talking about that's doing all the heavy lifting on the code for the auditing platform, while everyone else has been busy. Yeah, I don't know. He didn't ask anyone to deposit. Like, I'm not saying like it's a big giant scam or anything. It's just like, I'm just leaving it as like, what the fuck are you doing, Andre? Like, you need to. This is why we have test nets. Go do it over there. Don't do this shit in prod. But you know, on the other hand, everyone that's just like FOMOing into a thing Andre deployed without knowing what the fuck is going on, I also kind of can't feel bad for them either. Like, generally, I'm just looking at the whole group and being like, this is just a giant clusterfuck of idiot and asshole. Like, I'm not sure which group of you is the idiots and which group of you are the assholes. Or maybe you're all just fucking idiots. I don't know. But, like, I have a hard time having sympathy for any of that situation. I want to. I want to feel for people. But on the other hand, I'm like, what the fuck were you doing? Anyway. Where was I? Right. I'm not trying to, you know, knock Andre or anything, or knock anybody else. It's just like, oh, god damn it, people. Really? Alright, so, that is where in here, and I'll have to dig into, get the code here, but essentially, this will, use the ETH to buy half of that. So, we'll take the ETH here, and we'll say, okay, ETH goes in, through there, and we'll say, can I get a half circle? Is that possible? Do I have a half circle in here? No, I don't think I have a half circle. Okay, so we will take half the ETH. There we are. Yep, we'll take 50% of the ETH that was brought in. We will sell that. Let me just mark that that's a sale. Here, I'll do it like this. And sell for, core. Barnet isn't quite big enough for you guys. Maybe I can adjust that. But the idea is, comes in, bring it ETH, it takes ETH, it sells half the ETH for core, it gets core back in this case. Boom. Actually, do this. Where did I put that circle? Actually, here, let's do this one. It will get back that core amount there. Boom. And so, yep, there we go. It will then get that core back out, send that in, and here, we'll do this to make that somewhat easier. There we go. So yeah, it's going to send in half the ETH that you put in. It's going to get that back as core. Then it will take that 50% of ETH combined with the core that it does get. I know, I'm not being crazy or innovative here. I'm literally just like, okay, well, let's just take the thing you did at the beginning, you know, and let's just keep doing that forever and ever. But rather than let people buy out, how about we just hold on to it and back it with an EFI token? And so, boom, there it goes, gets this there, and then coming out is where we should get, hold on, let me see. Someone said that the main dev of YF Beta is busy, but there are some active community devs. Again, not sure. I'm happy. Anyone that wants help can talk to me. I'm very busy. I'm kind of giving preferential treatment to the projects that I touched on before I had to put a hold on doing like the serious live audits while we work on the auditing platform. I should be working on that now, but everyone here like seriously wanted help, and like, Yeah, I'm also in there, so I could also use the help in recovering from this. So here I am figuring this out. I don't think it'll be that difficult, to be honest. Really, I'm just reusing a crap ton of code. And so I'm just going to pull code from various places and stick it together, you know? And to be honest, that's most of what my job is, really. Even when I'm working professionally and building stuff, since it's all based on open source, it's like, well, I'll take your server software and I'll take your whatever, and there we go. Alright, so that is where, boom, it then will get back the core liquidity pool token. Here, I'm going to adjust that a little bit, move that over here. There we go. I'll modify that a little bit and have it come in there. There we go. Alright, and then it will get the core... Oops. We'll get the core liquidity pool token back, and then we will take that core liquidity pool token, and we will deposit that into core itself, and boom, there it is. We are... So far, that is phase 1. That is the buy-in process. Nothing weird or innovative going on here. This is where, oh, well, thank you for saying that. And thank you for thanking me. I'm glad I can provide value to people. I really do see life as a infinite positive sum game. For anyone that's not familiar with game theory, that's the idea that, when essentially game theory, if you guys aren't familiar, I term it as like, it's the science of conflict resolution. It goes through and analyzes situations. It goes through and figures out, my fucking slacker. I'm not fucking slacking. I know it's supposed to be working on the audit platform, but I'm saving people's trying to save people's investments with another alternative. I know that this whole thing is like, I don't have an option but to have you send in more ETH. I can't do anything with the orb, and I really don't want to do anything with the orb, for God's sakes. I'm not sure what to fucking do with that. Maybe one thing that could possibly be done is to, like, take the orb from you guys and burn it, but the problem is orb has like this infinite minter, so, and there's the bug in there of restaking things. So it's like, well, if you're gonna have a hard time getting orb out, and that's really the issue. Like, if orb was still viable in the sense that people could reliably get orb out, then, like, there's nothing we could fucking do, you know? So, whatever. Anyway, it might be really late to everything going on, but is the original orb being fixed or a completely different coin? Yeah, kind of a new token with better functionality. There's not a way to fix orb, unfortunately. Simple enough. I do think the tokenomics need to be explained on site. Yes, they do. That's a standard. That's actually one thing we're setting for the audit platform, is we're actually part of that. It's going to be a bit down the road, but we're working out a data model by which a team can define their tokenomics, as in, you know, here's how the tokens will be dispersed, here's how things will be locked up. It can get a little complicated because there's a lot of different ways you can manage it, but there's only so many things you can do with tokens, so I'm pretty sure we can work that out. And the idea being that when a dev comes in for an audit, like, great, give us the white paper. Yeah, I know, he's just giving me a hard time because he knows what I'm doing. I was like, that's where he, yeah, they come in with the white paper or the announcement. It's fine. Like, great, this is what you're telling people, but here, put this JSON data model of how your dispersal is going to happen to start with, and possibly one for the tokenomics, and say, cool, we're going to pull that JSON from the website, and we're going to give you a formatter so that this JSON that defines your token dispersal is actually what's being shown on the site, and that way, when it comes time to deploy, it can be like, all right, come back and shoot. That's something that I was considering to try to fix this, is to say, there likely will have to be a time delay on this, where people that had originally bought core could possibly get an airdrop, but that's also kind of the point here, is that I'm using an EFI token to help address that, so I'm trying to be very careful. I'm not sure, to be honest, I'm really not sure how to fix some of what is going on with orb, you know? And so, I mean, as in, it doesn't seem like it can be fixed in any way, and we can't bring orb into this because it would just taint the whole thing and fuck stuff up. If we tried to, like, have people get their orb out and bring it over, then that just kind of leaves this exploit on the other side, where it's like, well, how do you ever get more orb? And how do we ever convert orb into anything that we can work with? And, like, fortunately, we really can't, so... If I never get the orb dev to pay more attention and actually get off this, then actually give me their undivided attention and really work on something. They just keep sending these like, somewhat mopey messages, like, it's fucked and I can't figure it out. Why you talk to me, man? Like, my whole job, my entire fucking life has been solving other people's problems, for fuck's sake. Just talk to me. Okay, anyway, so, this all would be the buy-in process. The whole intention being that you can just buy in with ETH. The idea here is that we probably have a proxy here that handles the integration, and so we can iterate on this over time and have different buy-in options where we kind of follow the same basic model, and thus can build core of other things and kind of keep iterating on that. And so, oh, thank you. I do think that I am doing the Lord's work. I mean, the blockchain is God and all that, so there you are. But anyway, we're starting off with this because it's simple, it's easy, I can build on top of core, we can drive some more profits through here. It's already profitable, so I'm not worried about breaking anything, and I'm not really worried about... Well, I mean, I want to make sure I get it right, but it's not like, you know, I'm trying to figure out how to... it's hard, however, looks mind-boggling. I guess. Yeah, I'm trying to figure out how you could pull out of orb. It's not so much that you're pulling out of core, but more that we're automating the realization of the profits and then basically handling that for you. So essentially, it's just this point of like, look, just keep coming in here and just keep depositing, and this thing will keep turning over and realizing the profits for you. And then whenever you want to sell out, boom, off it goes. So yeah, there it goes into the core LP. Based on the core ETH LP, you then would get a allotment of core chain. So boom, we go through that whole process, and what should come out the other side is the core chain token. Now, to be clear, I want to make this note here. This is intended to be an EFI token. And the whole point of the core chain is that it is pegged to what is coming out of core. Now, interesting point here. The staking platform will be the one that actually owns that core profit that's in there. So basically, you cease to have a core profit that you are realizing. You are instead realizing the profit through the core staking, through the EFI core staking platform. So if you wanted to, you could take, right now it's starting with ETH, but I could probably just add in a function to say, well, just give me your LP token, and boom, I'll go drop it in there as my own. And then that way we can kind of take from that secondary market and say, okay, come over here. I have no idea what the orb dev is doing. I have made contact with the orb dev. They have not given me like attention enough to have a solid conversation about what is going on and what we could do to try to recover from this. If I could get like their undivided attention for a period and seriously talk with them, then I could try to work something out to do with that, possibly airdropping things. So yeah. Alright, so again, everyone's asking about YF beta, so just to be clear, sorry, and other channels too, so just to be clear, alright, so that's one. He's like, alright, so YF beta, happy to help out. I have talked with the dev and made contact again, but they're doing stuff. And again, like everything happens when I try to talk to a dev, they're like, oh, I have my own projects, and thus I will focus on those. And I can't really fault them, but at the same time, it's very much like, okay, well, I'm trying to help. I need you to take like an hour out of your time and just come talk to me, and we can see how we can help. But anyway, yeah, kind of like how Rotten Swap turns some of your tokens into maggot, but I don't like the coloring of Rotten Swap, and I don't give a shit how much profit they make. I don't need to like stare at yeah, I don't need to stare at that puke green color all the time. So alright, what is this bug? Bug tester, yes. That's very true with that gift. All right, so it's the idea of voting. Oh, okay, fine. That's voting there. All right. Anyway, so boom, goes through that. Now the idea is that in doing this, we should at the same time be able to claim our profits out of core. Now, mind you, this is technically the profits for the platform, the staking platform, but in doing that, yeah, so it would deposit there. Right after it does that, it would also call this claim. So we'll say that it is doing that. I know it says deposit. I really wish they hadn't do that. So we'll say deposit, but you know, in reality, it is the claim operation. Devs, really, you need to name your shit better, honestly, I swear. Anyway, so yeah, the whole point there is that at the same time someone comes and buys in, this thing will also go and claim its profits. And so here we will take that out. And so in claiming that profit that has been building up that it owns, whoops. Nope, Control-C, Control-V, there we go. So that's where it will then get the core back out of realizing the profit. So again, this is happening every time. The idea is that this is happening every time someone buys in on this. Every time someone invests, is going, okay, well, I'm going to take that, and I'm going to double check that I've got any sort of, you know, return to realize off of core. If I do, it's like the very first person that buys in is there's just not going to be anything for them. Or there's not going to be anything to realize off that, but we'll have to put a check in there to address that. So unfortunately, it's going to have to check every time, even though technically it shouldn't need to. But it should need to find out the balance, so it's okay. So boom, it gets its core out, and then upon getting that core out, it will take that and boom, stick that into its vault. There we go. So now we've got core here in the chain, and in doing that, it will, boom, also, and this is the beautiful part that I think, because rather than have to have some sort of governor, see, this is a problem I've always had with some of the other rebase tokens, is that they're like, well, we are going to have this thing out there that's constantly calling the rebase, you know, like, they're just basically a thing spinning every 24 hours and calling it. Alright, so, pardon, it's just the rate that everything's moving around here, and the rate that everyone can't keep track of what's going on. I'm not faulting anyone, but it's like, I can't get a hold of them. Oh, God, you know, things, the status of things can change drastically over the course of even a couple hours, so what do you know? Alright, so anyway, puts that in here, and then will give you some core chain EFI. Now, that is where all of this should really have a... Can I... Yes, there we go. If I move all of this down, there we go. Then it should also have up here the core chain, whoops, UFI vault. And so that's where initially this is going to start with probably all of the tokens in here to begin with. Might airdrop some of these. That's where I'm going to talk to you guys and figure it out and say like, okay, it's, you know, we can try to drop some on the existing orb holders. I can't really do anything about that. I'm not, you know, what's there, and I'm not really sure how best to calculate that, because this thing is going to keep changing in value. If I handle this properly, we should get infinite positive rebases, because we're going to be debasing. Well, I'll show that here in a second. So yeah, we've got the core EFI vault, and so here in the process it would say, well, I'm going to then withdraw from the vault and give you your core EFI. Fantastic. There you go. So what this is the buy process. there. So that's how you get in, and you now have core chain EFI. Well, at the same time this is happening, this thing is going to call, what do I call this? I guess I'll just put that there. It's not really supposed to be a token. You know, correct that. We'll call it this. There we are. Core chain ETHI contract. And specifically, what it will do every time it calls through. Now, this is going to be the really weird part that most people aren't used to. If you are familiar with ETHI, you're probably not going to be used to this. So to be clear, this is the contract. This is just supposed to represent a token from the contract, right? And so, what is this? Tronex.net investment platform on TRX blockchain. Okay, cool. Thank you for the word. I'm not sure why you want to screech about that like that. You sound kind of like a horrible, worthless shill. So, weak-way smuggler, I wish you had something better to do before, other than just shill. Maybe you could do something valuable with your life, like I'm trying to do here with, writing code and helping people and generate that value. But, if you're trying, then thank you. Yes, we are thinking hard on this. Definitely need governance to keep the community alive. Yeah, we totally can. That's part of my point here. It's like, this is just the first demo. This is the first proof of concept. Like, all right, if you guys are willing to give this a shot, and let me try out this idea that I've been having for a lot of other platforms, and this can be kind of the proof of concept, and all of this work that we're doing to integrate with Core, that can be just one of many integrations. So you know how, like, a lot of things have, they got various integrations they can do. They can talk to, Balancer, they can talk to Uniswap, they can talk to whatever, they can handle one thing, they can have the other. Call it Corb. I came with the idea a few days ago on Discord. Maybe we can call it Corb. This is being by my charity, the Church of the Chain. So there we are. So yeah, I mean, and part is I like the idea of calling it Corb. That might be cool. I'm just kind of throwing out there as like, hey, I got the church involved here, so maybe we'd go with that one. At the very least, I'm probably gonna take our logo and ask the artist that put it together and say, all right, can you take the ORB logo, take our chain logo, and make it pretty, and stretch it over each other. Anyway, so yeah, maybe we can do that. I'm open to all kinds of things. No, I don't think ORB is ever going to recover, partly because, I mean, in theory it could if people stopped fucking with it, but I'm not sure that's even really feasible to ask, because it looks like part of the problem was that it didn't properly account for how to handle people selling out. That's why it was in this continual, like, downward curve onwards, and so it was trying to make up for that by saying, well, okay, I'm just going to print more and more orb for you to kind of make up for that. I'm like, I see what you're doing there, but you kind of, like, you're doing the same mistake as the Fed, where you're just printing money to try to keep up with the inflation, and what it really needed was a buyback process and a burn. And so that's where the idea I have here is that every time someone buys in, what this thing does is, on top of all of that, it will call the rebase function. And what it will do in calling the rebase function, let me see, can I put there we are. So, we'll mark that as rebase. So every time someone buys in, it's going to go through a positive rebase. No, I'm not the developer from ORB. I am just a dude helping out. Yeah, ORB can't be saved. It's autopilot and has the address staker. Yeah, and that's something else we've been putting in our standards for auditing, is to say, okay, look, you can't be accepting addresses as arguments. If you're trying to interact with the message sender, there's a reason we send in the fucking message sender, and you refer to the fucking message sender, period. So yeah, that's where I'm not sure what we're gonna work out here. All right, I'm just now covering the model. Having covered the model, we can talk about what you guys are comfortable with and airdropping everything. We just have to. I'm gonna throw out there that they ever need an apprentice or someone to teach. Yeah, keep in touch for apprenticeship and so on. Yeah, if you've got any knowledge at all, actually, to be honest, if you've got no fucking knowledge and you want to learn, we'll work with you. If you've got some knowledge of computers and thus we don't have to explain like basic programming concepts to you, then even better. We can put you to work even faster. And our entire education system right now is basically based on mentorship and volunteering. So, I think I'll convert my losses to core. I can definitely see that. When the pre-sale... Don't know when the pre-sale. So again, this is not anything with Audit DAO. Not sure the pre-sale. We're literally just... I'm spitballing a design to the community here. So I know everyone's very eager. I appreciate that. Bear with me while I spitball this design out to people. And we say, alright, so this is the buy process. And to be clear, what is happening here with this rebase is that the core chain, I'll just keep calling it the core chain EFI now. I mean, pardon it is for my church is basically fixing this. Whoops. Core chain EFI pegged to a multiple. I did not do that right. Multiple of the amount in the core reserve. Multiple. Whoops. Multiple of the core reserve. Alright, so that's the idea here. Now, I'm not saying this is brilliant or anything, and that's why I'm kind of spitballing it past you guys. Be like, do you think this could work? So, that's our basic premise here, is that when someone buys in, so again, it goes through this process, says, alright, great, thank you for the ETH. If you don't come in with a core ETH LP token, then thank you for the ETH. We will go ahead and split the ETH in half. We will buy half the core back. So there we go. We'll send in half the ETH to sell for core. We'll get half that back as core. Then we'll go ahead and deposit both of those in the core ETH liquidity pool. And this is just step one. We can do this for other things. After that, it's then going to come over and say, all right, I'm going to, having gotten that liquidity pool token back, I'm then going to go over to core and stake that in core. When I stake that in core, I'm also, that'll be done, finished, but then I will also go ahead and claim any rewards that I have from core. Having gotten those rewards to claim from core, and again, this is all happening at the same time that someone's buying in. So, alright, I'll get the rewards from core, then having gotten that, I'll deposit that into the core chain core vault, so this is the core that it's holding onto. And having done that, it will call the rebase function on the core chain token itself. This will then be basing on what's in the core reserve. So basically, it's just added to the core reserve, and upon just adding to the core reserve, it then says, okay, well, since EFI token, since you're pegged to the value of core at some multiple, so, it might be like 1/100th or 1/1000th of a core, is one of the EFI tokens. So that way we get this, like, boom, increase in liquidity. Even if randomized on the schedule. That might be a good idea. Guys, you've got there's a whole, I appreciate you sending me answers, but, I don't want to be the single point of failure here. There's a design ideas channel up above. Please, go ahead and bring them up there. I can keep an eye on there. We can talk amongst each other, but, like, let's not make me the single point of failure and the single, relay point between everyone. Go ahead and drop them in design ideas. And that way, everyone can see them. You guys can debate over them. You can decide exactly what you want. And I can give my 2 cents on, how that works and whether or not that's technically feasible. But essentially, every time someone buys in, we're going to be adding the pooled return, the pooled profit from the from core itself into this vault. And then as soon as we deposit, like, all right, you bought in, boom, 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 there we go, deposited that there. Now we realize the reward there. We take that, put it into our core vault. Then as soon as that's done, we tell the core chain EFI token, okay, go ahead and rebase yourself to account for the extra value in the core vault. Boom, that's done. And from there, it goes, okay, well, based on, boom, we let the token rebase. After it's rebased, we then we'll figure out what return of core of core chain you should be getting back. And that's where we're gonna have to dig in and see, okay, well, what is the exact calculation here for the rewards? I'm not saying it's bad, but, you know, what is the direct calculation there for the rewards? And thus, here, I'll unmute you guys since it seems to be a little better now, and we'll deal with that. Hold on. Let me tell Wolf. So yeah, that's where, here, I'll get him in. See, maybe we can. Over here. Sorry, I've been working with Wolf over on Wolfpack for some marketing ideas, some project ideas. He seems to be a good guy, and thus, you know, he seems to be like all of us, you know, getting caught up in little scams because either, you know, lacks that critical piece of knowledge. Like, I lack some of the trader knowledge, so some of the stuff has caught me. I'm not... I can see how the economics would work, but then I don't predict the market terribly well, and it's like, oh, shit. The math would have worked if the market had behaved appropriately, but we don't get to dictate how the market behaves. Therefore, trying to say the market behaved or did not behave appropriately is kind of a bullshit response, you know? So I'm always having to learn stuff there, and he's helping out with the knowledge. Like, he's teaching me stuff about trading and you know, how people actually act, because I'm fucking autistic, and none of you guys are math or IP addresses or computers or operating systems, so whatever. Anyway, where was I? Yeah, so there's our basic model there for the buy process. And so you have this EFI token. Alright, so that might be fine. You're like, well, what the fuck do I do with that? Well, for one, you now can safely hold that. That's kind of the whole point here, is that you can just safely hold this, and you don't have to worry about trying to sell that back or come back to realize any profits. And that's kind of my whole idea here, is to say, I don't want people to have to come back and deal with this anymore. But I also don't want to have, you know, a bunch of bullshit where people are... Here, I'm going to mute you there because I got background noise again. Again, trying to be understanding and sympathetic, but, like, sorry, that is terribly distracting. Just either put yourself on Twitch to talk or whatever. Where was I? Oh, yeah, so that's the idea here. So that's why we have the EFI token here, is so that every time someone buys in, it rebases the token automatically, and so this thing's going to rebase a fuck ton, like all the goddamn time when someone buys in. So the idea is, if you want to get ETH out, then what we do is you say, okay, I want to get ETH out. No, I'm not sure I want to have that whole thing there. I'm going to go ahead and just delete that, and we'll just start here. So the sell process be over here. Come on, you. I wish I had something on my Mac where I could just, like... Oh, okay, I can do it that way. That's decent. I'll deal with that. Alright, so... here... the sell process, we're going to have kind of a buy and burn, but not exactly, you see. This is where we're going to account for this. What will happen is, this is the silliest code process ever. Why bother? This is design. How will Trib be incorporated? Trib was an idea I had. This is kind of what Trib is doing under the hood. And so I'm starting off with Core because Core is a wildly successful project, and everyone is profiting off of Core, and so that way, we can build off of this, and then once we can prove out the concept with a profitable product, then based on what you guys would vote for, like the governance token or something, we can iterate on that and go through something else. As far as this is the silliest code process ever, why bother? This is called an architectural diagram. It's not exactly a flow diagram because I fucking hate those things and they're annoying, but this isn't silly. This is me taking time to design shit so that I know what I would be coding. Like, going through this, I've already realized, got it. I'm going to have an interface here for integrating with Core. There'll have to be a Core interface that acts there. That's kind of, well, farming. Much like how many places have the ability to add new farming options, same premise here. We'll have an option like, all right, here is the EFI token. That's why Core Chain is kind of the start. Might change the name there. Might just call it Chain, to be honest, because the whole point here is that as you guys vote and want to improve on the process, then we can just keep coming in and, like, just keep adding more shit on top of it. Like, oh, you guys want to work with Trib? Fantastic. We'll go do the same thing with Trib. We'll go do the same... Like, basically, anything that's following this basic model, we can do this same kind of thing. So long as holding on to the token that comes out of whatever that platform is will continue to turn a profit, then we're happy to integrate with it. Because this whole model is just based on, like, look, if I hold on to this thing, will I keep getting a profit? Yes? Great. Then I will hold on to that. Yeah. Like I said, thank you for bringing that up. You know, you'd be surprised when you have it for the visual. How would YF Beta be incorporated? It could be. Like, at this point, I can incorporate fucking anything. Like I said, as long as you've got a token that by holding on to it, something else is going off and realizing profit, then I can link this into anything. I don't give a shit. I'll just plug this in any goddamn token. This model will work with anything that, so long as I can do something to get the token back, and holding on to the token will realize a profit, then you have to understand, in all of this, you're locking this up. Like, in this case, in nowhere in here are you ever getting this core out. Alright? This core is entirely owned by the staking contract. But, it's a bit better than something like what Core's doing, like what Trib's doing, all of that. Because what will happen in here, if you come into sell, and, you know, I'm not even sure this is going to be the same profit, or the same contract, so we'll just say EFI Core Sell. I can change the name there. If you come in and you're like, alright, I want to get some actual fucking money out, because for a while, nobody's going to do anything. Like, at a certain point, people can just start using the chain EFI. I'm like, alright, that's cool. We'll just keep doing that. Something in the chat. So, can we get a feature where EFI is stakeable against the rebase, and during negative rebase, the amount of staked EFI is deflated, say by 0.01 of the token. Is there a way I can not kill the stream and still have that? No. I don't have a good way there. It just puts it in the corner. I hate that. Sorry, it makes it a little hard to read them because it puts the window over here, and I'm not sure how I can... Can I get that? Can I change windows? No. Can't do... Alright, so you just fucking sit there over the text. Thanks for making my life difficult, Discord. Beautiful. Can I do it by making you wider? Sorry, I'm trying to read the message there and ideas, because it's a good one to... I think it's a good one to include there. Okay, yeah, you kind of do that if I stretch you wide enough. Jesus, I hate you. Discord, why do you have to be the best platform out of most of the stuff out there and yet still be fucking horrible? Hey! Yeah, I've had that for other stuff when I'm watching someone stream, but when I'm streaming, there literally isn't a pop-up button there. It just doesn't have it. It has, oh, I can stop streaming, or I can look at the stream settings, and then it says, oh, I can change windows, and change windows does nothing. So I'm presuming that it's because I'm doing a whole screen, it doesn't have that option. So... Oh! Please! Yeah, please, that would help. Go right ahead.
Out of the vault, right? As the
and if you don't mind, I'll put you out on the stream too, so other people can hear you. You cool
Yeah,
with that?
that's fine.
Cool. Go
Yeah.
for it, man.
So as the EFI token that's inside of the vault, when the system does the rebase, it's almost like a futures market built into the platform against the rebase platform. And so as the token deflates or has a negative rebase, it would decrease the value of the staked EFI by say 0.01% of that token. But when it goes up, it would increase that token from the vault by say 0.01%. And so there's a way to make a gain and a loss. And you could actually
Ooh.
build almost like a second liquidity pool on top of that as well, where you're staking your gained EFI tokens in ETH liquidity versus the vault rebase process, and thus increasing liquidity in a platform as well as having a burn and deflationary process built into the whole rebase on top of the rebase, and thus increasing the value of the EFI tokens that's being held versus those that's just being gained through staking or sitting idle inside of a wallet and things like that, if that makes
Wow.
sense.
No, no, yeah, I see what you're going on. Is saying like, okay, look, if you leave the chain EFI token with us, and therefore let us kind of monkey with it to make this stuff happen, then we're kind of going through the reverse. So, yeah, I think that's something to add in here. So let me finish the sell process here, and then based on the sell process, we can see how we can fit in that, because I like that idea there, to give that people that option of, look, you can either go off and hold on to this thing and plan to come back and sell it, or you could stake it with us, and then when we go through something like this sell process and go through the debase, we could we can kind of do the reverse over here and say, okay, if you staked with us, then we'll go ahead and, as people are selling this back, because really what I was planning to use, not a true burn process, but just a debase, to say, okay, well, you gave me a certain amount back, great, I'm just going to take that out of the supply now, and in taking that out of supply, debase the EFI. But in doing that, I see what you're getting at, is that we could look over and say, okay, well, we can account for this staking pool differently. Maybe it's not part of this debase or some point, but that's the point there. Is like, all right, that's over there, and if you staked with us, then we'll debase, but then as we debase, we could take things out of the that vault, keep track of your individual balances, obviously, so you can realize that profit, but as we bring in, sorry, I want to sell this and get something back. Cool. Here you go. We'll just start with ETH. You're going to get your ETH back. You're going to get core back. No, you'll get ETH back. You'll get ETH back in this case. But in the process of doing that, at the same time, similar to here where it's saying, okay, you bought in, I went through and put that in there, and I got core back, and now I hold on to core. Then I was thinking through the sell process, that's where it's taking this, figuring out, okay, how much core does this chain token represent? We'll go ahead and pull that out of the vault, sell that off to the liquidity pool token, or to the liquidity pool, to get ETH back. And in doing that, we'll, boom, we've got ETH, and boom, there you go. But yeah, I can see what you're saying is that, as in addition to what we're doing here, to say, okay, at the same time we do this, rather than make this just a pure debase, every time someone sells in, boom, it debases, and thus people run the risk of like a whale coming in, like, I drop a whole bunch, and then suddenly everyone's tokens debase, and if no one's buying back in, then we can end up with the downward spiral that we've seen so many of these platforms go through. But if we add on what you're saying, then we could say, okay, we're still going to keep track of what your share of this EFI token stake is, but because you're being kind enough, not exactly kind enough, but you're kind of protecting against that by leaving that with us, then we'll actually take all of that, literally, just like almost the whole fucking pool. We'll run it back through the entire system to sell it, and then as soon as we sell that for ETH, we'll then run the ETH back through the buying process. And so every time someone sells, we're like, okay, great. We'll also sell everyone else's portion here. So, all right, Mr. Whale, you want to try to dump on everybody? Guess what? Everybody's going to fucking dump on you now at the same time. You'll just be in the big dump with everyone else. We'll dump it all. As soon as we dump it all and get the ETH back, we then turn right around and go, well, that's not actually a dump. We're going to turn the dump into a pump and run the ETH back through. and bring that back up, which then should drive all the economic activity from the trading happening, which then should also realize the profits from core at the same time, which would then mean, well, now we should be at a positive, so therefore every time someone tries to sell and debase, in reality we're just going to run the whole thing through again and force another positive rebase. That's
Right.
fucking
That
brilliant.
would
I like that.
incentivize the whales to keep their tokens in the platform more, because when it runs through, they'll gain even more value. But it also increases the tokenomics within the platform, because most of the platforms that's out here, they're simple money in, money out. This one is a recycle of tokenomics throughout the system, and it gives it
Yeah.
like a third layer of application within an application to keep it flowing through.
You're entirely right. Oh my god, man, you're a fucking genius on this shit. Okay, I need you around more often. I got a charity. We're still doing volunteer work. We're ramping up. Like, everyone that's been helping me out. Like, I'm keeping lists of folks around here that are helping out. Like, it's happy to have the volunteers. And when we ramp up the donations, which if this thing works properly, we're gonna take a tax off all of this, because essentially the platform doesn't need a tax. It doesn't give a shit. All the liquidity's locked up. You know, the only thing you can ever get out of this thing is either the chain EFI for buying in, or initially ETH for selling it back. But everything else is locked up in here in perpetuity. You're never getting that out, which means as we keep churning this thing around, it's going to keep realizing that profit, because even if nobody's buying in, even if people come and sell, everybody sells all at once, like, okay, well, I'm just going to cycle around and buy in again, then, yeah, that, oh, this
All
is
right,
better
and
than
also,
what I was
just a
thinking
last
before.
note for you, Coyote. I'm also the person who sent you the message about the mentorship, like apprentice type deal.
Oh,
So
sweet.
definitely stay in touch with me.
Yeah, you the same, and that's anyone else out there. Dude, like, if you got ideas, you got things you want to work on. If you got your own project you want to do, cool. All due respect, we will get to that. We want to make sure that we're got a platform in place and got things built out initially. We'll totally put you on the list. But anyone that wants to learn, wants to work on this, and or has their own project, well, anyone that volunteers and helps out, obviously you're going to be first on the list when it comes to running through a project. So yeah, same thing to anyone. Tell everyone. You know, I'm flattered that everyone wants me to help out, but in my mind, I've already told everyone I'm trying to work on a project for the community. Trying to tell me to take time away from a project for the community to come work on your little thing is, to me, a little rude. And that's not what I want to do. I've been trying to be polite to people, but it's like, did you motherfuckers not listen, and do you not know how charities fucking work? You're not going to convince me to stop working for a fucking charity to come, like, make money with you. If I wanted to make money, I wouldn't have started a fucking charity in the first goddamn place. So, yes, beautiful. Let's definitely keep in touch. I love your mind on the economics and how you spotted that. So, to put this in, yes, we'll have this process where, and I'll add in that actually, fuck it, we'll just add in the staking option right now.
But can I add that if you buy and sell like that every time a whale leaves, you'll end up taking a lot of losses on slippage and fees and all that.
You can, but that's where I'm kind of considering that we'll be able to kind of make up for it in volume. But you do bring up a very valid point that we have to figure out in fiddling with all of this, is to make sure that the slippage and the fees don't overcome that process. I'm
I think that,
hoping. Go ahead.
sorry, that rebase idea, where you, it's slightly unequal when somebody leaves versus when somebody joins, would really incentivize long-term holding. It's actually very smart.
That's okay. Yeah, you bring up a good point there. That yeah, the rebase and the debase should be off slightly, so that yeah, when we rebase, we're jumping up a bit higher, and when we're debasing, we're jumping down a bit lower. On top of that, I do plan on taking a bit of a tax on various moves throughout this, probably to make it easy, like a very small, like 1% tax on every transaction that's going through. So, you know, when you got several going through here, that could add up a little bit. But that then goes off to the charity's donation pot, and thus, you know, that there's just more funding for the charity to keep operating. You know, we're here to serve the community, so you guys can vote on this. Can just be one of the things the charity is maintaining for you guys, and you're realizing profits from your stake in there. So you're not realizing profits off the charity, you know. But that could be one way to offset that, is that since the charity's just looking to hold on to this money for as long as possible, we're only going to sell out when, we need to cover some funding or something, then that might be one way to offset that slippage and such, to say, okay, when someone buys in, the charity collects some taxes. When someone sells out, then the charity includes all of its in there, in the transaction, and thus that way the charity is getting that, hopefully collecting that little bit extra off the top when we're paying for the various slippage and transaction fees going through this, and then when it's coming out, the charity is contributing back in by saying, okay, when we go through this whole process and just churn the entire vault over through this, then we're also going to throw in the charity's assets in that regard, and therefore, kind of pull that out. So we'll probably need a charity vault here that can store that. But if that sounds reasonable, if I'm getting the tokenomics wrong and I'm misgauging how that would work, I think your idea, the point of, yeah, we have the debase and the rebase slightly offset from each other, so they're not exactly the same, and then we account for that further by saying when people are buying in, we're taking a portion out for the charity, but we're not including the charity's cut in the rebase operation, because that's off somewhere else, and it's basically literally your token is backed by what is in the vault, and rebasing there, what the charity has is not really included in that function, because we're going to have something else over there. But then when we're buying back in, the debase operation is accounting for the charity's funds, because that's running through with everything else. And that should also account for, we're not, you guys aren't realizing profits from what the charity's doing, because that would be illegal, but we are taking part in the group trade just like everyone else, and so we're getting returns just like everyone else is at the same time. But again, I think both of these are good points, and something to consider as we're putting that out there. So in this case, when they sell in, we will debase, so that will effectively burn the chain that they sell in. When they do that, then we are going to go to the core vault. Yep, I'm going to go to the core vault. We are going to go ahead and get our core back from here. So we will make that call out to core of the vault. We will get the token back in core. Boom, that comes back to the cell platform. Then from there, it will go off and, yep, we'll sell that core back to, no, wrong one there. It will sell that core back to the liquidity pool, and in doing that, whoops, actually, we'll take that a moment. We'll pull that core out. It will then also, actually, it'll pull all the core out. So let me make it clear here. All the core that's in the vault. It's like, great, thank you very much. We're going to do that. We're then going to call out to the core vault and say, all right, give me all the core. I'm going to keep track of what portion of that this represented after I debased. And by debasing, then that means that when we finally convert it through, it should work out properly. And so then comes all right, we sell this out for ETH. We get our ETH back here. Where did I put that? That's that one. So then we get our ETH back here. Oops. And upon getting the ETH back here, we then go ahead and give you your ETH. Pretty basic on the sell part, but to your point there of holding on to the staked core chain, so we just say that core chain staking vault. Let's add that in there. Staking vault. Boom. Then, there we go. So with that in place, we'll say at the same time that it goes to debase. It'll debase there, and then when it's going back to Let's see here. Alright, so we got our core chain there. Technically, we could run the whole thing through the buy process again. Like, alright, here, we've gotten the core. We're going to run the whole core through here to get ETH. Yes. And then having gotten the ETH out, we can... To be honest, I almost want to say, fuck it, when you try to sell, we'll go ahead and just go out to the core EFI staking vault, and we'll just pull that in and basically add that to the core that you're selling. Now, that doesn't mean the guy's going to get anything special. We're just keeping that. We're like, oh, well, you want to sell in? Okay, everyone else wants to sell at the same time. And thus, we take that, we debase based on what you're trying to sell. We then run that whole thing through the system, drain the whole vault, basically, sell that off, get as much ETH as we can back, bring that back in, give you your portion of ETH, and then we come... Fuck it, there's really not a way to say it other than we do kind of like that, and just feed the ETH back in all over again. And it's like, every time someone tries to sell, we go, well, that's cute that you want to try to dump on everybody. Here, everyone's going to join in your dump. We're all going to dump together. We're all going to get... dumping together, we're going to get all the core out. We're all going to, like, sell that back. We're going to get all that ETH. You're going to go ahead and get your cut of the ETH. And then we're going to go ahead and run the ETH all the way back in through the beginning all over again. End up with a stake of more core. And when the chain that comes out of that process goes into the staking vault, which should be how you guys, when you stake in there, can realize that profit. Because like, okay, we're going to turn the whole thing over. In turning the whole thing over, we just debased for the portion that was sold it all through, then basically sold the ETH back in, got the core chain, got the chain back out, which caused it to rebase again, which means we also collected the profits at this point. So we got the ETH, if there's any profits there, we got that, further, collected the profits there, move all the way through, and boom, get that core ETHI vault out of there. I almost want to say when we get the ETH back here, yeah, no, I think that's the best way. We just get the ETH here, and then we say, yeah, I don't need to figure out anything special. I'm literally just going to run it through the buy process again, and run it through there, and when the sell contract gets that chain EFI back, it just goes, okay, well, thank you very much for that. Boom, I'm just going to stick that in the EFI staking vault, and you guys just keep getting the percentage, and it's just entirely based on that percentage. So this thing should keep going up. It should keep growing. At any point anyone wants to realize profit, they ever have a bill to pay, they need anything, they ever get a sweet deal, they can just come in and sell. We could possibly even automate it to a degree and be like, oh, if you want to just sell what's in your stake, go right ahead. Just click this button, boom, we'll pull out the number, do that, to run it all through, and if you wanted to, you could just, like, dump everything and get your ETH back. But if you do, if I'm modeling this right, then at no point should anyone ever have to worry about getting dumped on. No one should ever have to worry about coming back and farming, because all of this is just happening automatically, and it's building up, it's giving your EFI, building up the core vault as it's moving through. Every time someone sells, it goes, runs that core back through, and realizes the profit, and then moves on further. So,
Well,
what do you guys think so far?
it would drain the vault entirely, right? Anytime anybody sold, so the next time somebody tried to sell, there wouldn't be anything for them in the vault.
No, that's the point, is that every time someone sells, it drains the entire vault. It takes all of that core, buys ETH, then takes, all right, you sold some this, here's your cut of the ETH. Like, okay, great, out of all of this, you're due, say, 1% of the ETH. Great, here you go, here's your 1% of the ETH. Then, when we do that, we also immediately take the rest of the ETH, run it back through the buy process, churn it over all over again, basically staking that ETH back in as core and ETH in core, and then we get the core back, and then we put that core right back in the vault. So as soon as somebody sells, we flip it over and then put it right back in the vault in the same transaction. So because
you
of
have to
how
buy
it
more
works,
core, right? There's no more, you're buying the core LPs and staking it on the left side. You're buying core, unique core ETH Uni LPs and staking them in the core proxy, and then that over time gives you core that goes in the vault. So you have to buy core separately with that ETH that came out of the vault to put it back in the vault. Otherwise, you're just compounding.
That's the whole point here, is that we're not having to have special logic over here that does that. We already have that as part of the buy process. So we are buying more core. We're doing that by saying, okay, well, we're gonna trade the core for ETH, then we're gonna come over here and sell the ETH to the staking contract, just like any human would, and we split that in half, buy half core, and then stake the core and ETH again, get that LP, stake that into the core proxy. At the same time, we then realize that profit and put that out there. And now that I say that, I do realize that your point does hold in that, yeah, the first time something happens, we're dumping a bunch in there, we've just drained the core proxy, and so there would be a delay on, like, okay, if I try to sell, then I'm going to need to delay further, but I think this is the point the Richie Rich brought up with Yeld. If we set it as kind of a retirement plan to say, okay, if you want to sell, you go ahead and sell us your token. We'll take it now, we'll hold on to that for 24 hours, and then the next transaction after that 24 hours, we'll churn this all through. Or sorry, we'll churn it through and sell. We'll hold on to we'll give you your cut of ETH, we'll hold on to some of that ETH for 24 hours. That should give core time to build up enough profit to make things somewhat reasonable, and then we'll dump that ETH back in. But I think from the point that you guys were bringing up of, we have a difference between the rebase and the debase, and we put a delay in here from, I want to sell, and we're like, great, we'll fulfill your sell order in 24 hours. And so I think that's where if we take like a snapshot here and say, okay, what would you, if we sold it now, what would you be due? Great. We're going to wait 24 hours to actually finish your sale, and we'll finish your sale at the value that it was at the time that you sold. And I think that 24 hours should be reasonable enough to say, cool, we need to make sure that core can continue building up enough of a reserve. That's kind of why I want to run through this whole process again. So it's kind of like, all right, you do this, we do the whole thing, we sell the ETH back in, and we have this building up further, but we're not going to let you have your ETH back for another 24 hours. And thus, you kind of see what I'm getting at here, and I'm trying to work it out. This is why I did the model to say, not positive, need to diagram it out, and then confirm what that is. So if anyone has any input on how to account what you pointed out correctly, which is, okay, we need to make sure that we don't just drain the entire thing all the time, and never have any further profits off this, because
it would be a
dumping
compound on every sell.
Yeah, it would.
Another interesting thing is that you might be able to exploit this system by triggering it to do large buys and that you know are going to happen, or sells, and you can exploit that potentially.
Huh.
I think, I don't have a concrete example, but maybe if you know that it's going to drain the vault and buy a bunch of core, or sell core for ETH, you could drive the price up. You could front run that, basically.
Okay, so you're talking about if someone's keeping track of this and they know, okay, so I sell, and I know 24 hours after my sell, it's going to dispense my ETH, and at the same time, it's already run the ETH back through to get that back into core, and therefore give 24 hours for this thing to realize profits again. Therefore, we don't run into that risk of, oh shit, you sold and got the ETH back, and now if somebody comes in and sells after you, we've got nothing to really deal with here. And that's where, because we're going through this process and saying, okay, I deposit this, and then I draw that core out of those profits and put that here, then given that we're pooling all of this, that should mean that no one person could ever drain the vault entirely. And so that means that maybe we don't even need the 24 hours, because it's like literally we dump it in, we go through, at the time that we sell it, we also realize the core profit, we dump it in the vault, that's there, nobody has enough to truly drain the vault, and every time someone tries, we just keep going back to the core proxy and drawing it out. So this does mean that it would have kind of a slow burn as it gets started, because we'd be saying, well, the EFI is backed by what's in the vault, and at a certain point, you're like, well, if people just keep churning through and selling, then technically, so long as we give this thing enough time to spin up, and in that spin up, like the liquidity generation event, we're accounting for a tax. So this is why I was thinking maybe we have another tax that keeps that core vault stocked.
So with that, you could add in, like for people who are going through that core process, right? That they have a certain time period that once they stake versus the core vault, that they can't pull out. So when you commit the transaction versus the core vault, you can't pull out for 7 days. And I don't think that you should completely drain the core vault when it cycles through. I think you should
Okay.
only leverage that versus what that person's stake in the vault is. So that way there's a guarantee that there's always more core in the vault and it stabilizes versus the EFI. But as the buys and sales happen, you still take that percentage of gains versus the total core inside of the vault and not against the
Yeah.
actual core being generated.
Yeah, you're right, and I like that, and I think I know a way to handle that, which is one of the taxes we collect is when you sell your chain back, we take the tax off of the calculation from the chain. You know, like, okay, just say it's 10%. 1% actually is probably a better one. Because like if we just keep taking 1% through a lot of these transactions, that'll add up quite nicely and still not be a huge impact on anybody. But it's like, okay, great, we're going to take the 1% tax off, then we're going to, well, hell, even take a 10% tax off the sale, maybe, kind of like Trib does, and then say, okay, we're going to go get core from the vault for the total amount you sold back, but we're only going to sell you back ETH for 90% of what you sold to us, which I think is achieving what you're looking for, and thus we can do it on every transaction. Which is like, okay, great, 10% of what you would have claimed to is actually going to go running through the whole system again, but that 10% is not coming back to you as ETH. It's going to stay in the core vault. If that sounds reasonable for achieving what you're talking about, because you bring up a very valid point that we do need to address, and I think that's a way to do it. What do you think?
I think some of that I didn't quite catch, but I think we need to be very careful in terms of draining the whole vault. Like, I don't think a single actor should be able to drain the whole vault and compound it automatically, because that will prevent anybody else from selling out, basically. So if I put $1,000 in and then somebody else drains the vault, then I won't be able to take anything out. I mean, I'll have a higher interest, but it'll be stuck.
No,
And
you're
if
right.
you go back and look at what happened with ETH and FOMO 3D, when the actor who originally won FOMO 3D on several times, what he did was created enough transactions on the blockchain to stall the blockchain out to force the timer to go down. And if you're draining the entire vault at one time, then one person could create a transaction fee large enough on ETH because V2 is not out yet, and those transactions are stalled due to gas prices and things like that. What can happen is essentially one person can lock up the entire vault if you drain that entire vault every single time. And that's why I say we
Okay.
never drain the entire vault. We only drain it versus the balance, because the vault is being compounded versus every person that's in the contract, as opposed to a single person who will never have the total value of the entire contract. They can only take out their portion, and you do that gain and minus versus there, and that way you also reduce the risk of, like he was saying, of locking up the contract and preventing draws, and you also get away from increasing gas prices across the network to lock up other things, because of, like, when a new contract comes out, everyone FOMOs in, gas prices goes up $5-10, right? If you lock
Yeah.
up the nodes on the network with the transaction, you're kind of doing the same thing by stalling that out.
Yeah, it makes sense.
Those are very good points. Yeah, those are very good points, and that's why I was proposing we don't drain the vault. We just say, okay, we're going to take a tax off of you selling. In fact, that means that we could, like, the charity could get its cut on the 1%, 1% tax on a few of these transactions, or maybe like just a 10% tax off the core that's coming out. But the platform, you guys get the compounded interest from one, this kind of thing just turning over, and over here where we say, all right, if you want to sell, cool, we're going to take a 10% tax off of what you're selling, but we're going to pull the whole 100% out of the vault. We're going to run the whole 100, not the whole all the vault, the 100% of your share. So we're going to take your full share that you would be due in the math out of the vault, run that through this system, getting the essentially the 10% of the ETH that you're not getting paid back, that's backed by this chain. That's what then gets fed back through the system to compound that interest. So basically, every time someone sells, 10% of what they would get back in ETH gets funneled back through the system to compound the interest for everyone to keep building that up, which then would actually properly incentivize whales and flippers to keep coming in, and would add a natural delay that will get shorter and shorter over time, I think, because they're going to look and like, okay, well, I'm going to have to pay 10% when I sell, but if I wait a period of time to where that 10%, the profits have overcome that to make it worthwhile, then they'll just sell, and we're perfectly content to let them do that. At this point, I'm thinking that we've got a case where it's like, whales, do whatever the fuck you want. Traders, flippers, do whatever. We don't give a shit. Flip, trade, do whatever. There doesn't need to be a delay. Every time you do this, we just compound 10% of your share of the core. 10% of the ETH that you would get out of selling back into the buy process, which just compounds the whole thing all over again. Yeah.
And that'll make you want to keep 100 ETH in the platform a lot longer, because 10% of 100 ETH is 10 ETH. So you're like, I want to leave this in there until I at least have 110 ETH just to hit my break even, as opposed to, hey, I put in 100 ETH today, I want to pull it out tomorrow when I made 1 ETH on top of that, right? Because that's what a lot of people do. They deposit large amounts, they take out a big chunk, and then they pull everything out, and there's no penalty for that, and there's nothing to incentivize the whales to stay in. And also, by doing that 10% fee and pushing it back through the platform, you increase natural sustainability. And so for every debase, you get a rebase to increase the overall market cap and liquidity available for the platform at the same time. Like, it's really self-sustaining in the model as long as it's implemented correctly.
Yeah, and as long as you get all the math right, and you're right, make sure you get all the taxes correctly so that, the charity is getting regular donations so we can keep doing stuff like this. And this also means that you guys, I guess we could try, well, yeah, I think we could, if that we make sure that we emit a log message, because that's what happens when you see the logs in there. That's us, just sending out log messages that you guys have. We get to decide what's in there. And thus, technically, I think we should actually be able to have that work, is that, yeah, if we do the calculation of the log message when someone sells, then we can take that 10% off and say, okay, we're going to funnel all that through. When we funnel all that through, we'll figure out what, that portion then led to a core profit. We can figure out what the tax, the actual value of that core profit is at the time that you sold, emit that log message with an indicator, okay, this wallet did that. And then that means later on, with that 10% tax, when we figure out, okay, well, what portion of that got diverted to the charity's portion to keep doing this work, then we can emit that log message and say, okay, well, in selling this, at the time this person sold, they made a donation to the charity. And so that means that every time someone sells, they get a tax-deductible donation to the charity. Oh my god. Oh, so it also incentivizes people to sell. So the people are looking at it and being like, well, I can either sell when the profit's high enough to make it worthwhile to overcome the 10% tax, or I could just wait until end of tax year and just like run all this through real quick right before the clock ends and get that massive donation in the log at the end. And it's like, well, I got my portion back, and in getting my portion back, I was automatically donated to the charity. Wow. Okay. I think we got a model here, and it even incentivizes people to sell even when it's not necessarily profitable, because they might look and be like, yeah, fuck it, it's not necessarily profitable right now, but I'll get a nice break on my taxes when I do. And this thing is just going to turn over like mad. And this provides a nice bonus on top of that, because like I said, we keep building this out, start accepting different types of tokens in here based on whatever other protocols come up. We take pretty much any other token out there that we decide to integrate with, do this same thing, and can just keep building it up over and over and over and over and over. And so at a certain point, we're like, well, we're starting with ETH, but at a certain point, fuck it, we'll take damn near anything. We really don't care. You guys can have we can put a governance token on top of this. You guys can vote on which ones you want to have integrated. You pick a platform that allows us to do something effectively like this. I mean, technically, at a certain point, we could even start putting into staking contracts that have more standard rewards, but then that also, we just have to understand, all right, well, that's not going to return as much of a profit necessarily as something like this, but, fuck it. If it's a good thing, you guys want it, why not? We can just keep churning it through. We just have to modify this a little bit for the staking rewards to, like, we can't hold on to we can't hold on to it like we do core, but we could just leave it in the staking contract over there on that other thing, and then whenever it comes time, we'll just pull out the portion that we need. Basically, we could treat any staking contract like we treat the core vault here. And just say, oh, okay, anytime you want to sell, great, we'll just go with the staking contract, we'll pull your portion out, we'll run it through the market to generate some traffic and some velocity and some trading activity, basically generate some volume and increase the velocity, and then in doing that, we'll just come right back around, and similar to how we stick it back in the core vault, we'll just stick it back in that staking contract, which then could also, we have to be very careful about which ones we bring in to make sure that we don't introduce some sort of horrible leak in the system. But if everything is based on, look, you give us the token that is appropriate to whatever it is you want to stake into, and we go put it in that, if one of those things turns out to be complete garbage, then, at a certain point, we're like, well, we kind of don't really give a shit that part of our portfolio is garbage with some shit coin. We're good, we've got all this other stuff in the portfolio that's offsetting that. But that's something to consider for future. We can write all this code out so that we can stick in additional integrations to other tools and other platforms as they come up. Because, like, my other thought is, this sort of model would kind of fix Trib. Because we put this model on top of Trib, and we're like, oh, okay, well, we'll take your MUSD, and you can get MUSD out, but we manage the whole thing. And so rather than being a core vault, it's a Trib vault, and we do the same thing here. To be honest, in these cases, it's kind of okay to dump the entire, like, cash out the entire Trib vault to get MUSD, and then funnel that whole thing back through to get more Trib. And thus, yeah. Alright, so this I think is like version 1. Prototype, kind of proof of concept of the idea, and then we prove this out and we just keep building on it, which then means that in this process of the EFI staking contract, if we have the option of saying, okay, you guys, we can airdrop the EFI token on everyone that had ORB, and we can try to figure out, what the exchange rate would be in something. We'll have to leave that up to you guys to vote out. Please don't go too fucking high, because we don't want to ruin that, but we could have that special airdrop into the staking vault, where, like, okay guys, here's your token. When you guys have it, we can keep track of the wallet addresses that got the airdrop, and then you guys can come back and put it in the staking vault right off the bat. So you're kind of just getting free chain EFI, but it comes with a proviso that we're keeping track of your address that got the airdrop, and all you can do with the airdrop, possibly even just set it up in the vault automatically. We drop it in the vault. Actually, that might be a better way to say, okay, we'll drop it in the vault. When we drop it in the vault, we'll credit that portion to your wallet, and then put a time delay on it. So essentially, yeah, that would be perfect. We start this thing off with like a 7 or 14 day or 14 day Genesis event to let people buy in, let it build up some momentum, let it build up a nice reserve, and you guys get free EFI dropped in there, and that is on, like, say, the same delay, I guess, as everyone else. And really, we're just sitting there with, like, well, we've got an EFI token, we're waiting to handle that, but we just need some people to come in and buy in here, which then can mean one way people can incentivize is to say, well, as part of this Genesis event, if you go unstake your core liquidity pool tokens from core, and you can't redeem them, but if you bring them over here and put them in, then we'll give you a special exchange rate. Because look here, we're not having to buy core off that. You already gave us that, and so we'll just drop those in there. And during the liquidity event, we can have that bonus point to like, look, if you want to come in with ETH, cool, come on in with ETH. If you can come in with the core ETH liquidity pool token, go ahead and give us those, and we'll drop those in. You won't have to pay the tax of what's going on up here, because we don't have to do the exchange, and so boom, you're immediately going to get a better return on that, and we don't have to do a special calculation or reward program there. We're just, you don't pay some of those tax because you don't have to do that work. And then you guys with the EFI tokens are like, well, I got free EFI, it's sitting here, it's left over from ORB, and we got an exchange rate, and it's just locked in here until the Genesis event is over. If any of you have core or want to go get core, then that can be a way to encourage that even further. I think we just have to say, you know, during the Genesis event, we're not calling the rebase function, and that way, whatever we put in there for the exchange rate, that's it. We're building it up, which also means then that we're kind of letting the market decide how much you guys get reimbursed or covered for the orb problem. Because you're like, look, I got EFI in here, we're not rebasing during the Genesis event, so it's just going to pile up and pile up and pile up. Whatever it ends up being at the end of that, that's what we rebase on. And so that way you guys can be incentivized to say, look, I know I have some, but if I actually want this thing to be worthwhile, if I want it to not just like immediately debase because there's not much here in any of this, that's fine, you don't have to. But if you want to drive it even further, then you'd be like, well, you know, go ahead and come on in, buy in. If you've got core, pull those LP tokens, drop them in here, and boom, your EFI token's then immediately worthwhile. Which, if that sounds reasonable, you guys aren't getting screwed, because you're getting airdropped the core chain, you know, the chain EFI for doing all this and realizing profit, but at the same time, other investors that might want to come in aren't dealing with the problem like, well, there's an entire community here that just got a bunch of tokens airdropped on them, and I know the second anything happens, they're just going to dump those and leave. Well, at least that will be their thinking. This is setting it up to say, no, we're in early, but we're not going to be able to realize those profits until there's been time for it to build up, and further, if you guys want your free tokens to actually be worth very much, you guys need to go shill. You guys need to convince people to buy in. You have to explain this whole thing. You helped design it, so you should be able to do that. We can promote it further, and then you guys would also have this can also be then pitched to everyone to say, look, we know that we've got a stake already in this and we're going to profit, but we also now have an incentive to buy in. And so you guys would also want to buy in to further compound that, because you're like, hey, I've got some in here. If I just keep funneling more ETH into this thing, or I keep bringing my core ETH LP tokens into this thing, then that's just going to make my free EFI tokens worth even more. So if that makes sense and sounds reasonable to you guys, I think that's a good way to deal with the hazard everyone else is going to be dealing with, of like, well, why the fuck should I buy into this thing? There's this giant community here waiting to cash out. This is just another Ponzi scheme. We're like, nah, it's not a Ponzi scheme. Because if none of this works out, and nothing, like, if nothing comes in here, then effectively the EFI token, it can't rebase to zero or debase to zero, but it's just going to drastically drop, which then really makes it like a virtuous Ponzi, because you guys, if you want to realize the profit out of what you have in here, you got to go shill and convince people to buy in, but when they're buying in, they're still profiting. Like, they're still getting EFI tokens, it's still going through. So as long as we give time, appropriate amount of time on the Genesis event to let core, you know, this thing build up its rewards out of core, then nobody should really give a shit that you have some tokens. And if we only give you a portion and then have a portion to, oh, that's it, we give you guys a portion through the airdrop, we drop it right in the vault and give you guys credit for it, so you don't have them and they're locked up during the Genesis event. That should make everyone comfortable on you guys getting the airdrop. You're like, well, we never got tokens. Our tokens are trapped in the vault waiting to unlock like everyone else's are. And in fact, technically, it never really unlocks. You could just withdraw it. Be like, nah, I'm just going to let it ride. Why not? And then, yeah, this gives time to build up. And so if we then also reserve some of the EFI tokens for other people, and during the Genesis event, we say, all right, if you buy in, we're going to not only sell you core, the chain EFI token for buying in, but we'll also like match that with what we have in the reserve. Then I think that should make everyone happy, right? I mean, check me if I'm wrong here and I'm getting out of line.
Yeah. So, also, if you look at what Richie Rich was saying, he was saying, interesting design idea on the experimental project was that there's durations where users have to hold a token for a day before they can get rid of the 10% burn rate they have on their token. Have we considered that idea? I don't know how exchanges would list that. Taking that a step further would be for everyone who was part of ORB or Core that brings that over into the platform. If they were to sell out early, like as soon as the initial lock period is up, we throw a burn rate on their tokens, right? But if they hold those tokens, say for an additional 7 days or 3 days or whatever, they could slowly work down that burn rate, say from 10%, and every day it goes down by 1% to
Yeah.
burn rate on their initial investment, right?
Not a step function, but like some kind of a curve, like half within a day, and then it goes down over time.
You're right, and that's where I think we could make that really nice, and like you said, make it a curve, not just a straight step function, by having it be kind of a, well, to be honest, it's on a bonded price curve. If you cash out, the longer you wait to cash out from when you staked in, then the better the bonded price curve that we are. We're basically just going to advance you along that and say, okay, we'll just keep changing the multiple or the divisor that we use in the bonded price curve calculation. We'll just adjust that. Oh my God, that's it. Oh.
And
yes,
also,
from the last time someone
Richie
sold...
Rich was.
Go ahead.
I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, Richie Rich was asking if we were creating documentation for this as well. What we could do as far as documentation goes too is we can create a one-page white paper or a one-page text summary that summarizes like these highlighted points to capture what was done in the development stage, the migration of the core LP as well as the ORBs, and then how the platform is going to function to offset for new investors versus recouping from the old decentralized platforms that crashed out, and how this model moves forward. And then you could do a full detailed extract from there and kind of do it in like a two-step project plan model using like agile dynamics, right? And so essentially we're saying, here's our technical write-up on it, and this is what we're doing, but on the backside we're going to give you white paper version 1 and version 2 that's going to explain the total model of the ecosystem and tokenomics, and then version 2 can explain the adaptation of new tokenomics, where we're looking at taking the same model once it's proven, once it's stable, and it's making profits for everybody involved, and this is how we're going to introduce new tokenomics and new platforms into this whole concept. And this actually branches out on so many different levels, but I'll stop there for now.
No, you're entirely right, and that's where we can totally document this. That was actually the intent of diagramming this, was to get a visual here of the process, so that way, anybody here, I can export this, drop it in the group on the design ideas or something, and then people can run with this and write up that model. I would recommend, don't put too much fucking work into it while we're developing. We may need to modify some of this, but at the very least, we can keep that parallel development of the code, the diagram, and the documentation, and just put that on GitHub, make that publicly available to everyone, and that way people can see, okay, well, here's how it's iterating over time, and since it's in Git, they can go back to the old stuff and say, well, where did it start, where did it evolve to, and, how did it develop? So, This is pretty damn good. Alright, and this is kind of an idea I was having with EFI in general. I was trying to talk with the Ample guys back when I found out about it, and I was like, oh my fucking god, guys, what you need is market cap and trading volume. What you need to do is have an exchange that does something like this, But my idea was, okay, rather than just picking a platform and going with it, it'll be something that goes out and finds any token that has sufficient market cap and volume for us to give a shit about, and it will then like dump whole vaults and everything, like move heaven and earth to go buy as much of that token as it possibly can, pair it in the marketplace with all the various EFI tokens this thing is integrated with, and if it sets the exchange rate properly, then if you start pairing that with enough other tokens, at some point, the price differential between things, the exchange rate, the routers will notice, oh, just like now it notices, oh, I want to sell this for that, but I route through USDT. It'll notice, oh, somebody wants to sell this for that, but if I route through, the ample pool or the based pool or the whatever pool, I'll actually get a better exchange rate. So it won't be all the time, but you'll just be constantly funneling a little bit of the value, the trade volume through those EFI tokens, which should help them, constantly get more volume, raise their price, all that stuff. And then got the idea, well, let's have an EFI that's pegged to other EFIs and have a bundle of them, so kind of like an EFI curve. And then if we have an EFI in the bundle that's pegged to the EFI curve bundle, then, you kind of see like the recursive harmonic effect I was going for. But this is a great first model for it, to get that out there. We can prove out the concept and work on it, and then and then we can continue iterating on that and just pick more and more tokens, and you guys can have the governance and vote on what do we want to add in and figure out which ones to integrate with. And anything that does stuff like core, that's what I'd be proposing. I know Trib's got kind of a bad rap because of how it played out, but I still think the tokenomics are sound. It's just everyone, they aren't thrilled about the they aren't thrilled about the people being able to collect interest. They feel like they're getting cheated, which, fair enough. That's an opinion, kind of a valid one. And further, the entire model, like, oh, I have to buy in and then hold on to this. A lot of folks got turned off with that initial dump. Well, if we do that again and say, okay, well, we're kind of like core here in that we're locking up these tokens. You don't really ever get to get them back. Like, you're never getting core out of this thing. There's just nowhere in here can you retrieve that. We don't care. That's not what the point of this is. But if we do that with something like Trib, then we're like, okay, you're never getting your Trib out of this thing. You come with MUSD, we run it through, we keep cycling it through. That's one where it would actually be profitable to, like, exchange the whole thing, because every time we dump the entire vault into Trib, we're going to raise the floor price, drop the sell price drastically. It's just going to plummet right to the floor almost sometimes if we get a hold enough of this stuff. And then we're immediately, after dropping the sell price back down, we're immediately going to turn around and buy all that back up and hold on to it.
Yeah, so essentially what you're doing is we're not selling this, like, you change the verbiage and the perspective of it in the sense that, you say a lot of investors get scared due to the accumulation of percentages of interest rates and things like that. Well, look at big investors and what they do. They go out in the United States, they buy like SS bonds, II bonds, and things like that. Those have a maturity rate of 6 years, right? And you get very minimal percentages on that. If you buy a certificate of deposit, you may get 2 to 6% guaranteed interest after 6 months to a year or 2 years, depending on how long the CD is. And so these are more digital bonds and digital CDs, in which they're permanent bonds and CDs that you collect permanent escrow off of. And by changing the verbiage and how this is sold, we change the perception of what it is, and then you get out of that Ponzi-nomics and you get into true decentralized finance economics, because we're still using the same marketization that large venues are using. However, we're just taking the model and making it permanent bonds and permanent CDs with the variable interest over time. And based off of the variable interest is where you get your ROI, and you can do the ROI calculation based off of the variance, right? And the variance is dictated by market value, market capitalization, liquidity, and things like that, right? And so it's variable interest on permanent bonds and permanent CDs and revolving escrow, right?
Yeah, no, you're entirely right. Yeah, I like that spin on it. I agree with that, making that case like, look, this is the DeFi version of a bond or CD. And I like that pitch because that would really make it really clear to people, look, if you know economics and you know financial instruments, then you know what we mean when we say a bond or CD. And I like how you're phrasing there. I think it's a good idea to change the phrasing on it to make it clear to people, look, you really need to understand you're supposed to hold on to this thing as a savings account. And it's going to be kind of initially like a little bit of a slow burn, but it's going to keep compounding. It's going to keep rolling over. Every time somebody's profiting out of this or selling, we're compounding that little bit extra in there. And every time someone buys in, we're cashing out all the revenue, all the profit that this thing has generated every single time. And this is the part that I think is reasonably safe, because every time someone buys in, we're like, okay, well, we'll happen to use this action, because that's how contracts work. We can't have a contract that's just like idly polling every so often or working on a clock. Technically, when things like Ample say, oh, we rebase every 24 hours, it's like, well, either you have a function in there or something in the logic that every time someone engages with this thing, it just checks to see, is it time for me to rebase, in which case it means it's technically not on that time. It's not on a 24-hour timer. It's a 24-hour plus whatever time it takes for someone to execute whatever transaction it is that would trigger that rebase. So they technically have something out there polling, calling that rebase function in some cases. This says, fuck that, I don't need that. Every time someone buys in, I just use that action to also then realize, pull the profit out of core, stick that in the vault, and then I just let that start accruing more and more value. And then when someone goes to buy in, that's when we're pulling their share out of the core vault and selling that all through. And in that case, we can even work out that point of a variable amount, because we say, okay, we're going to pull your share, and then, out of that tax, it should keep growing and growing. I mean, it'll compound pretty fucking quick, but that's also where, if you guys want to compound even faster, all you have to do is sell, go ahead and take all of your chain out, sell all of your chain through, get the ETH out, let all that ETH, let the tax roll through, and then you also come back and sell your ETH in. And you're effectively then compounding that interest yourself, in which case we could even have a, compound my profits here.
Yeah, compound button, I like that.
Yeah, there's a compound button, and that just kicks off the operation to say, okay, great, we're just going to go ahead and take your portion out of the staking vault. We're going to run that through here to get the ETH, and then we'll automatically run the ETH back through to, get the profits out and realize that, and then we'll just hold on to the core. Damn.
I would just ask that we don't call it a compound button. We call it a Lambo button, because, measure crypto on Lambo.
Sure. We'll call that the Lambo button. Or we call it, the Lambo tomorrow button. When you want your Lambo, just click this button, you'll get your Lambo tomorrow.
How much gas is a rebase? I have no idea, but is it a lot?
It shouldn't be, because it's a single transaction on the total contract. It's not a signature transaction or multiple transactions. It's a single transaction versus what's happening during that transaction. And so essentially it should be calculated within the gas fee of the original transaction that kicks off the chain.
I see.
Yeah, and it's not that expensive.
Cool.
Yeah, and that's where we can pull the rebase function. Well, we can look at the rebase function for all the other stuff and just pull them in, and make that clear. Is everyone's going to have to understand, all right, when you do this, this can be somewhat of a costly transaction, because we are running through a whole bunch of crap. And even though it's a single transaction, we're going through a lot of steps here, but again, that I think acts as a benefit to say, well, that's a speed bump for the whales. That's a speed bump for the bots. To say, look, the transaction fee is a little high on this thing. Probably, I'm guessing about what synthetics is. I hate synthetics because they're so fucking expensive, and I don't realize, I look at this I'm not getting enough profit off this transaction fee, so fuck you guys. But this one can make the case of, look, don't worry too much about the transaction fee. You're effectively gonna get a portion of the transaction fee back by having all of this run through and compound things and realize further profits. So, yeah, it seems a little high, but don't worry about it. You're not intended to be doing this very often, and even then, that kind of, like I said, acts as the speed bump on the traders and stuff, because they're going to want to slow down a bit. Okay, I got this 10% tax when I sell. On top of that, I've got this somewhat high transaction fee. It's not crazy high, But like you guys are pointing out, it is a bit much because we are going through a lot of things. But
Yeah,
I think,
but in the documentation and on the site itself, like under those buttons that trigger those extra features, you throw up a warning like this causes increased fees. Small investors be wary, and you kind of save yourself by putting that disclaimer right there on the site. Like put it in front of them in bold red letters. Like no one uses red when it comes to a website unless it's something critically important. Like so, you throw it up there on red letters and you say, "Hey, be warned," and then that takes that pressure off of the content creators or the contract creators to have to worry about that.
Oh,
yeah,
I had a thought. Maybe this is off base, but hear me out. So, let's say that this has been running for a while and there's a lot saved up in the vault, and then you have a new person who comes in and buys in. Like, how do you prevent that new person from being proportionally allocated a piece of the vault? Does that make sense?
that's where they are getting EFI tokens based on the value of the token for, yeah, they're getting a number based on what they bought in. So we go through the whole calculation here, and since the EFI token is starting off in relationship to the value in the core vault, then, when they're buying out, it's like, well, you just contributed. Whatever you just contributed, we're going to look at how much core your portion, because I know we're pulling all of that out, but we're going to look and say, okay, the chain that you get out is actually going to be based on what share of this realized profit is going to be. And so, like, the share of what yours will be, so we'll figure that out, and like, okay, this is going in, and so great, you basically got this many liquidity pool tokens, and we place that in, and that's the share that you're getting based on
Right, it makes sense. I got it. But there'll be drastic changes to the rebase, like when somebody buys in, like what you have in your wallet could change hugely, I think.
Yeah, but in doing all of this, the ROI should go from a crazy amount to an absolutely fucking insane amount. And it's just going to kind of fluctuate between crazy high and absolute fucking insane. Because, as you're correctly pointing out, if a whale comes in and is like, fuck it, I'm throwing 2,000 ETH in this thing, okay, we're going to run that through. We're going to figure out how much VFI you get based on the value of the core liquidity pool. So we're basically saying, look, you're going to get an EFI token based on what this thing is valued at, and then that's it. Like, you get your portion based on what that is now, and then later on when you sell, that's when this thing has gone up in value, and that's when you can realize your profit from having bought in when you sell out. And then, yeah, that means that it's gonna, people want to keep buying in, and thus if they just dump a crap ton in here, they're like, well, thank you very much, here's your portion of the EFI token, or here's the EFI token for you based on the value here, and we can dole that out based on, well, when people sell in, we can just take a portion of that tax out and hold on to that as the portion to dole out over here for people, because we can't mint it.
You have to keep track of what's already accrued in the vault when new people buy in. So you couldn't have that whale come in, buy, say the pool only had one ETH put in, or whatever, the vault had one ETH, and he puts in 2,000, and he can cash out all of it, basically. Even though he just bought in, he can cash out whatever was there.
Yeah, but no, one person will never have the total value of like what's inside of the vault, right? And so that's where they're only going to be able to cash out their percentage minus the burn fees plus the interest secured over time, right? And so if you come in today and try and cash out tomorrow, you're going to take a 10% hit and you'll lose. Now if you get a whale come in, drop 2,000 ETH and they let it sit there for a month, they're going to gain their interest over time. However, they're still going to get a burn rate on that, and they still won't reach the total market capitalization of what's inside of the vault to withdraw everything and burn everything all at one time, right? There's still a period of time that they have to wait to gain interest. If they jump in and try and jump right out, they're going to lose 10% off the top, or whatever that percentage is right off the top. And so that will be a negative hit on that will, which is not smart money. Smart money in this contract is playing the long game, because the longer you sit there, the greater the capitalization, the greater the percentage of returns you get on your investment. It's like if you take a bond and you buy a bond for $50 today, it has a 6-year maturity date just to get that 6% interest on there. And so anytime you sell out up to that maturity date, you're actually taking negative gains on there. And because of that, you don't cash out early.
Yeah.
I mean, all that makes sense. I just, there's something in my head I'm having a little trouble wrapping my brain around with rebasing.
Yeah, and you make a good point there, because, I mean, as Dope is pointing out, and you're bringing up as a good concern that we need to address, and we want to make sure that, right, it would be nice to address this directly, either like Dope, you're pointing out to say, all right, we're going to clearly explain the tokenomics here, and very clearly explain in the math with examples to say, look, this is why you don't need to worry about a whale flipping through, because they're technically going to be losing money. And if they're not losing money on the flip because this thing is turning a profit so fucking fast that that 10% is literally taken care of in the time it takes for them to buy in and then click over and sell out, we could either make that very clear to everyone so they understand and try to address the FUD that way, or as an idea, we could cut out some of the tax rate on this and say, look, if you buy in and you don't press the buy chain button, you press the stake button, and you give us your ETH, we don't give you chain back. We say, all right, we're not going to charge you taxes here, or maybe, not charge you taxes over there. We're just going to, waive a portion of the taxes, but what we're going to do is maybe even collect it, but we'll take your chain, and rather than sell it to you, we'll go stick it in the staking vault automatically, and thus put that on a delay. So every time someone buys in, we could borrow from ORB in this case with the delay, but still have the code properly so that it's nobody else can stake for you. But that idea of you buy in, we don't actually give you your chain token back immediately. We actually go stick that in the staking vault, and every time you deposit into the staking vault, we just reset the clock on you, like 24 hours or something, and say, that way it can address the point you're bringing up. So, because Dope is right, I agree, and that's a nice way to handle it, but I think that it's good to explain all of that, maybe give people the option to do it, make it very clear, if you do flip this thing before this thing is turning over insane profits every second, then you're going to be running into loss. So as this thing is building up momentum, it's disincentivizing that quick flip, which is what we want to avoid. But also,
right. So
we could have that case to say it's going to dump it back in the staking vault, and therefore they can't get it out for a period of time.
Right, and what Richie Rich was just saying in the chat as well is that we put a maturity date on the tokens that come out of the vault, right? So if you put in today, you have to wait 10 days for your tokens in the vault to mature, right? And that goes back to that bond principle, whatever, on that maturity time. And so I think maybe if we could, and he was saying we could steal some of that code, he said Digo.finance has something very similar to that as well. So maybe that's something to look at. Also, shit, there was one more point I had with that. All right, I just lost that, so I'm gonna think on that and try and come back.
No, that's fine, and if you do come out, let us know. But that's that's what this page is missing. If you want to check the saved version, why do you think it's missing? You just loaded it. I don't understand. Anyway, that's where I could see. I don't want to give too much away of his idea, but Jeff, the other guy on the team working with me, is he came up with a similar bond idea. I don't want to give too much away, but he had some kind of idea there, and that's where this could be a wonderful thing for him to build on top of, to get, because this is a bond basically, and then he's got an idea to create an even better bond thing on that could be layered on top of this, on top of everything else he's thinking of, And so that way, this can, I mean, we could start including this in a bundle of assets as several other things. And thus, one way we can layer something on top, because right now, if we keep adding in different integrations with other platforms, then you're left with like, okay, well, which token, which of the many schemes, many profit revenue generating things do I want to get in on? And thus you're having to pick which token. We're having to keep track of like, okay, well, what's the APY on all of those? And all right, people are going to have to figure all that out. But if we take his idea to create a bundled bond of assets, then we can do this exactly as it is. People can buy in exactly as they want, but could come in with something like Dago or what Jeff has thought of and layer it on top and say, okay, as we add more integrations with other things, if you don't want to have to worry about keeping track of any of that, don't worry about it. We've got this bundled bond that you can get. Go right over here, buy in over there. One of the things it'll do is send funds over here and then wrap up your bond, your assets, the tokens you're getting here and the balance up in that bond that he's proposing managing, and thus you don't really have to worry through all of this. And thus, through that bond mechanism, that can handle the point of saying, okay, look, just give me a fucking token. I don't give a shit which one you give me. Here's the list of stuff you can do, and we'll just go run it through the system all over and wrap that up in the bond token that you're going to get back from that platform. And then that simplifies the process even more. And if we can get like perpetual, the infinity approval like you have on, like Curve or Cream or something, then people could even pick an asset that they just want to, like, as an automatic deposit, kind of like you got an automatic deposit into savings or 401k from your paycheck. We could say, look, if you give us infinite approval on some asset that we have here, then all you have to do is go convert it to that asset. The second it shows up in your wallet and the second somebody transacts in that token, we'll just reach out to your wallet, pull those funds in, and run them through this whole system and credit it to you. Again, not a requirement, but just for those people that are like, yeah, I don't ever want to hold this fucking token here. I'd rather just always run it through this thing. You probably wouldn't want to do your ETH, obviously, but, you could do any number of other things. Wow. Yeah. I think we got something here. And I think this is a good starting point. And I think we can start off with that idea of you can get that's the main point here. Our last question is, do we let people buy ETH or buy the chain right off the bat and thus be able to get that token? Or do we always say, when you buy in, we take your chain, drop that in the staking vault, and leave it there, like reset your staking clock on that for some period of time and say, all right, you'll be, so long as you don't stake again in that period of time, then you can come back and actually get that out of the staking vault. Which ways do you guys think? Do you even want to have that sort of lock and delay in there? How do you think that might pitch?
I think that you don't need the lock if you apply a penalty.
Okay.
But I mean, either way's fine, really.
All right. Then I think maybe just put it in as two options, like you can have it now, and if you get it now, then you're paying all the tax on everything. But if you're, actually technically you're still paying on the tax, but we could explain in the tokenomics of saying, look, if you do the, the Lambo button when you buy in, and you let us just take your chain and drop that into the staking vault and put a delay on that, then that will automatically offset. And thus, maybe we can even calculate a variable lock to say, look, this will unlock when the profits have overcome what the tax would be if you flipped it at that moment. But that might be a little much. I'm trying to keep it simple here.
Yeah,
I think we should do it both ways, though. Reason being is because the transaction fees on the Lambo button is going to be astronomically higher than just on the regular stakers. And for, people like myself, we're small fish in the game. Like, we're not coming in with 1,000 ETH. We may come in with a half ETH, 1 ETH, things like that. So you don't want them to get hit with those fees. It's going to steer them away from the platform. And so having two variations to come into it with a short explanation or something on it would be really good. The other point that I was going to mention earlier, when it came to one person coming in with like 2,000 ETH and then being able to hit the vault and things like that, one of the things that I really think should be done is prior to deployment, like we take this to the test net and we drop
Yeah.
3,000 ETH in the test net and we try to break this thing as much as possible.
Oh, always.
I agree.
We test in prod, right?
Sorry, what was that? Didn't quite hear
I
you.
said we test in prod, right?
Yeah, always.
Fuck no.
You know, that's the only way to go. We get the Kool-Aid man straight through the wall on this one.
Yeah, but no, I like that. Yeah, and then that's where we can use that as a demo for some of the stuff I've been wanting to push in the community. For I would like, because developers can run these tests. I mean, part of this idea is coming out of one I had for building up an entire market research tool, because us developers, we have tools to do all of this automatically. I don't know why nobody's built it out for you guys, and thus. We can, as developers, we can load up a local blockchain. It's a simulated one, but fuck it, it's not. It doesn't have to be real. And when we run our tests, we're literally running transactions. We just script out the transactions, and boom, off they go. And so
we
could
can drop
reuse
everything
that
in Docker and make it happen, and just
exactly.
try to go full force on it. And
See?
something I think would be really good is that what no platform has done to date is while they're running these type of functions through the testers, they don't video it and record it and show it to the public like, hey, here's the different things that have broken chains over time. Here's some video to show how these functions work and how the calls are being made. And then what that can do essentially for us is kind of do pre-auditing on the contract, right? Because you're seeing these functions work and how they're going to affect the contract prior to deployment. And that's also going to help with the marketing strategy and getting more people to come in. So there's a lot of ways we could attack this from a deployment vector to ensure that the small nuances that can cause catastrophic failure are covered prior to.
Yeah, and I like that because, like I was saying, that's something that I've been wanting to push on more teams. I had the idea of, let's build out a market research platform. It's funny that you say Docker. I was literally thinking the same thing. Like, oh, we'll just load up Ganache in Docker. We'll take whatever it is you want to do, and boom, we're off to the races. And that's where, somebody asked me a question about when YFS is unlocking and when we're going to do the stream there, so I'm just looking up that date. But yeah, that's something that I'm typing it properly. That's where we can build it out and do what I'm hoping to be able to encourage other developers to do is do exactly that. Like, all right, let's not just do tests to make sure your thing functions. Let's actually, do a fucking simulation. Let's build that out and get that properly in place. And thus, I don't know if you can
you run into issues where you can't think of the correct attack vector. You won't be able to simulate it. But
yeah,
obviously testing is super important on something like that.
Yeah, and we can extend the testing with the simulations to say, well, what happens when we run this through and this through and these different scenarios through, and what happens when we've got when only 2 people have paid like half an ETH in, and then a whale shows up with 2,000. Does it fuck the whole thing?
Right.
So, guys, I really appreciate you guys listening to my input on this and having a conversation. I will be back on tomorrow, but it's like 1:30 a.m.
Yeah.
By all means. By all means.
So I'll be with you guys tomorrow.
Yeah, certainly, and I think we've reached a good stopping point here. We've got a diagram in here. I can export this as we have it. And here, let me do that real quick here. And, hold on, you guys are sticking around. So I'll drop this in the ideas, so we'll have a PDF there. And anyone that wants to work on it further, we can continue interacting with it. But I think we've got enough of a model here to get devs on this. I had enough folks interested. Actually, the devs from YFMS said they were interested in joining in. Been talking with the guys over at Whaler DAO. They actually were they were saying anytime I got a presentation for them, let's talk about this. And yes, just like thank you. So yeah, that's where they were like, well, whenever you got a presentation for us, just let us know. We want to hear what you have to say. It's just I was busy. The Ample guys are kind of curious, but they're very focused on Ample, and it's not the team, it's the community there. But overall, I'm thinking that, you know, we can put this together. I've already tapped a few devs, and they've all said, well, when you have a code or a diagram or a document or something, let me look at it. And so I think with this model that we have here, and you guys writing it up into a proper white paper, then we can, you know, come back with this and say, cool, we got the whole thing in place, and we're ready to go. Here's the whole documentation, everything, what devs want in, and you guys can work out what portion you might want to offer to the developers for contributing to this. I'm taking the stance that anything you guys say I should have, I just want to funnel right into the charity. So you guys can decide how much all of this gets donated to the charity and decide, you know, what, if anything, gets doled out to any devs that help out.
Yeah, I think the charitable aspect is a unique thing in the space.
All right, so here we go. Let me get the time zone converter. Because someone in the YouTube channel asked, when is YFMS unlocking? So let me find the... I'll get that for them. But yeah, I'll make sure I get this exported. I'll make sure that we have the PDF in there. You guys can take that and run with writing up the white paper. And yeah, there we go. UTC. UTC there, and it's already the 29th over there. Okay, so that's where 214406. So hey, you guys can take this, write it up. I'll export it. Then we can take that white paper and show it to devs that are interested in helping out if the idea is interesting. This is enough for, you know, I and the devs I've already enlisted to start working on it, and thus we can get this ball fucking rolling. And I wanted to get the auditing platform done first, but this definitely does seem like something that, you know, we can work on first. All right, so for the guy in YouTube, let me say here, stream will be at 2 p.m. Pacific for YFMS. Sorry, just tending to business there. Not YMFD, YFMS. And then, which charity? That is the charity my church has started to help us kickstart Audit DAO, because we realize it's going to be a lot of work and negotiation getting Audit DAO in place properly. There's a lot of legal paperwork that's got to get done. And so we decided, you know, fuck it. We've been dicking around with this church thing informally and never made it properly official as a charity. So screw it. We'll just do that and make it official. And so that's this. The incorporation paperwork is in process. We should be getting our EIN soon. Once that's in, we'll be finally already paid the lawyer for it. We just need to get the EIN, and then boom, the tax exempt paperwork is off. Everyone's positive from the incorporation paperwork that like we're solid as a charity here. And then with that, that's where one of the nice benefits of us being a church is that a church operating as a charity is technically you can try to claim the donations on your taxes. It's just if you get audited, it's not pre-approved, and therefore you guys have to explain to the auditor if that gets checked to say who the fuck are these people and why did you give them so much money and why are you claiming on your taxes. And if that does come up, we'd be happy to help out, but the paperwork's already in place. So like talking with lawyers and everything, there's like, yeah, it's pretty much a done deal. You know, if somebody donates to a church and then the church immediately uses those donations to turn around and incorporate and file for the nonprofit, then it's like, it's damn near impossible for anyone to justify not letting you claim the previous deductions. But
yeah, I don't need to cut you off, but I gotta get going.
Yeah, certainly. We got this room. Stay around in here. I'm going to export the PDF here, and I'll drop it in the design ideas, and you guys can take it and run with it, writing up the white paper. And this is enough that the devs can get started on this.
Cool.
Sweet.
All right. Have a good night.
You too. And thank you all. This is beautiful. This helped me work out a lot of design questions I had on my little EFI idea. And so we'll save this and get that into here. It's technically still called nuclear core, but I kind of like the idea of just calling it chain, you know? And we'll keep adding platforms on here as you guys decide. I think almost one way to help out with this is to maybe just make chain the governance token, you know? And say, look, if you've got chain staked in here, then you can use the chain that you have staked in the vault to cast a vote. And if you cast a vote, then all that does is, you know, reset the staking clock to delay that. So if you make a vote, then you won't be able to get those out for another, like, day. But I think that simplifies things to say, no, our EFI is also our voting token, which also means that as this thing fluctuates, your stake in the ability to vote won't change, because, you know, BFI, it'll be proportional, and would also then set it up such that, like, if anyone wants to try to vote to make it profitable for them to dump, like, great, you can do that, but now you've just dumped, and you've sold it all, and now you don't have any more voting rights, or you've lost a portion of your voting rights, and so everyone else can immediately come back and, like, alright, fuck that guy, we're voting it back the other way, or something, if that sounds reasonable. But we can figure that out later as we go along. Sweet. This does mean that we're going to have ownership of this thing and be able to control it, but I'm damn sure we can make sure that the ownership is set up such that in the event of, like, one, all we'd be able to do is add in more integrations. We wouldn't be able to fuck with the system. Possibly change the tax rate, but we can attach the whole thing to a multi-sig wallet so you guys can be aware of how that's being managed and give some of you guys that have contributed to it some control over the wallet so we can manage that. Hook that up preferably to a proper voting platform so it's all automated. You know, we're not having to essentially hand the ownership over there, and then that way you don't have trust with control of anything, and set it up such that the ownership doesn't allow anyone to break in through the system. I've seen several times, and it shouldn't be too hard to put in, you know, various emergency recovery methods that if something does go wrong, at least what the owner can do is just execute a transaction, and that would just basically, like, flush everyone's stuff through the system and just be like, alright, we never actually got it, we never actually withdrew it, all we did was click a button, force the thing to go through whatever gyrations it needs to get ETH out, and then just, here's your ETH, guys, sorry this didn't work, but at least we're able to pull things out and move it around such, and boom, there's your ETH. But we'll consider that in design, and you guys can give us input on what you would consider a safeguard there to just in case. But like you said, we'll test it thoroughly on testnet, so we'll know if there's any sort of problem. So I don't even think we necessarily need something like that, but I kind of like having the safety measure. Cool. I think we got a solid design here. All right, so will there be a late night smoke stream? No, not a late night. This is kind of the late night smoke stream where I'm going through that. We got this design here. I'm gonna lock this down and call this good for right now. This is, you know, alpha version. I don't see a whole lot of need for us to iterate here, but we'll have to work out some of the taxes, maybe modify things a little bit. But in this process, need to break it up to a few more contracts so it's a little more maintainable, but I think I can also show this to the core dev and get their attention and possibly get them involved. And if you guys are involved with core and can go talk to the core dev and say, hey, dude, we really want to see this layered on top, and we'd really like to see you involved, I would love to have them involved. And if we can get the ORB dev, I don't want to sound like I'm knocking them, I don't know, I generally try to cut slack on the Hanlon's razor. Like, alright, I'm going to try to chalk things up to simple stupidity as opposed to malice, but I'm going to keep in mind that there always could be malice, and therefore try not to let myself fall prey to stupid shit. But that could still, like if you guys poke the core dev and be like, hey, why don't you actually get involved in helping fix this, then, you know, we can get their help there too. But to be honest, I don't think we really need them at this point. And like I said, we got our solution for all the ORB developers, or all the ORB investors that came in by just saying, yep, we'll just airdrop you some EFI, we'll figure out the rate at some point. I'm not sure how to calculate that on the translation to ORB. I mean, I'd ask you guys not to go too fucking crazy and giving yourself shit, because you don't want to drive people away, but at the same time, the EFI nature of this means that if you do somehow do that, and you decide, no, we're going to take some huge portion, we're like, well, whatever portion you airdrop is in the staking vault, that's not going anywhere for the Genesis event, and thus, if you guys vote yourself like a huge portion and it doesn't work out to be very good, then, you know, when this thing finally kicks off, the end of the Genesis period will effectively trigger the rebase as its start off, and thus immediately equalize the value of the EFI to whatever is actually in the vault. So you guys can vote yourself a big portion, but realistically, it wouldn't, if you voted yourself a huge portion and then we didn't get that much ETH in here to get that much core built up, then when this thing kicks off, we'll trigger the rebase, and then that would, if it's not matching up, it would actually be a debase when it kicks off, and thus everyone's value goes down. And so, you know, it's still proportional, it's still equivalent, but you're still left with this case of, yeah, I voted myself a huge portion, and in doing so, when it kicked off, I ended up with this somewhat crappy portion here. And that should work out reasonably, because if you vote your guys a big portion, you're kind of setting yourself a sales goal, so to speak, to say, look, you really do have to, like, market this thing and push it and get people in here and explain people why they're not getting screwed in this model, and really make that case. And we'll have all the videos, we'll have the demos, we'll have the test scripts. You guys, we can write it all out properly to say, look, if you don't really know how to develop, we'll have some instructions so you can download this stuff. I got an operations guy that's helping build out the charity data center. Small thing, I don't want you to think it's too crazy. But one of the first things we could try doing is literally loading up something there to let people just see this thing play out on some of our scenarios. They could literally see it themselves. So I think that would help you guys with the marketing and the push. And so even if you do vote yourself like this huge portion of the EFI tokens, all that's doing is setting a very, very high sales goal for you guys, because if you don't meet it, then great, the thing debases, and you don't, your portion is still very high, but overall, effectively, you're just setting it up to pay yourselves as the marketing team for this thing. I mean, that's effectively, I think, the way to pitch it to everyone else, is to say, yeah, we're getting the token, but all ORB investors are now effectively the marketing team for this platform. And they're getting paid out of the EFI tokens that will only really have value if you guys can market it enough to get enough people in here to make that reasonable. And I think that sounds fair. Alright. So, any final input, guys? Any other questions? Anything else we should have handled? Or shall we call it a night and I'll go throw this at some devs? You guys can write up the white paper, and as we put the two together, we'll see if we can get more people involved. Like I said, I was talking with Whaler DAO. They're launching an EFI token. Maybe I can talk them into, including this in some way, and we could have another integration on top of this, like a reward, staking rewards on tree using this thing. Nope. Okay, cool. Then, one point is EM hacked. Yeah, I heard about the EMN hack, so I'll just answer a couple questions here and remind people that I do take tips at cyotee.eth. Feel free to help me out for getting the development started. I am a broke motherfucker for having started up this charity and paid all the fucking legal fees to go in there. And so, anything helps, guys. But I also understand wanting to wait to see how this plays out, wanting to get the profits out of here, so by all means, do that. But otherwise, I'll just answer the few questions that I still have in stream and move on. And we'll call it a night. So, yeah. Cool, highly informative. Thank you. I'm glad you enjoyed that and got something out of it. Still holding some orb. Should we sell now? I'd say go ahead and sell now. That's the point, is that I can't fix orb, I can't do anything about orb, and to be honest, I can't let orb come into this system because it's just so completely fucked right now. If we let any orb come in here, we run the serious risk of fucking up this whole thing. So I would say go ahead and sell, but that's where we can look at orb and see all the transactions of what everyone bought and try to work out. I think possibly the best way would be to see, okay, what did you buy? When could you have sold when you bought, based on the timer, and thus work out to be what that value would be. But I think we've got enough people here that are proficient enough at reading the transactions to help figure that out. So I'd say go ahead and sell. We'll just kind of treat that as whatever. Again, I'm penciling it in. I don't want to commit. We're going to have to figure it out. But we can airdrop out to the Orb guys and basically call it, this is your marketing team stuff for this thing. Take it from there. Let's see. EMN hack. Have you heard about it? Yes, I heard about it. How is it even possible? Basically, it looks like it worked out that they're... From what I understand of what Andre is claiming is that they had launched out a gamified investment platform, and in launching that out, there were parts not fully in place, and because the thing didn't have a chance to properly get set up and wind up, it ended up with this case where people could get this crazy return by buying in and then immediately selling out. And because it hadn't had a chance to build up a reserve or anything special, it hadn't been fully realized, it ended up being that, you know, they could buy in, other people could buy in, and they're like, phew, take all that out. I'm gonna save judgment on what the hell is actually going on, because I haven't dug through the transactions, but that kind of seems like I don't know, I'm not sure what the hell's going on there. That doesn't sound like a great answer, but I'll have to dig in further. Option on Ampleforth locking down the tokens of the Qcoin hacker. I did not know Ampleforth locked down tokens of the Qcoin hacker. I will have to dig into that and figure out what the hell happened, because I'll just point out is that this is something a lot of people don't realize about blockchain and all these tokens, but like technically the token can do whatever the fuck it wants. Like, you don't have tokens in your wallet. What you have is a key that authorizes you on Ethereum that, if the token's programmed properly, authorizes it to do things on your behalf. But the token technically doesn't need you involved in that process. Technically, the token can do whatever the fuck it wants. And so I hadn't gone through the Ampleforth code. I wasn't sure if they had an ability to lock that. And so I'm not sure if that happened on the Ampleforth side, where they somehow found that balance. It's okay, fuck you, you don't get to do anything. Or if what actually might have happened was that Qcoin holding those tokens was able to freeze that account. And so I'd have to look in the Ampleforth code and figure it out. My thoughts is, this is why... Oh, there it is. Okay, thank you. I will pull that up right now and take a look while I move on to answer other questions and try to resolve that for people.
Hey, man.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, I joined late, but it looks like good work you've been doing here. I'm curious because I guess kind of overheard, like, that this would be, I guess, run as a church from, like, at least on the physical side of things. I'm just curious how that actually works. I haven't heard about that in this space, at least.
Oh, well, certainly. The point is that churches aren't anything special in that case. It's like, if they're not incorporated or anything, then if they're just a church, then they're just a church. And that's it. There's nothing terribly special. If the church does any sort of charitable work, which most would, then they can technically count as a non-profit. But that's where, alright, I need to verify that one, so I'll fix that. They can technically count as a non-profit, but if you want to try to deduct the donations to that church off your taxes, since they haven't incorporated and haven't filed for the tax-exempt status officially, then it's up to you talking to an auditor that might question that donation as to what the fuck is going on here and is that actually valid. And that's where, hopefully the church would help you out in that regard. Now, mind you, our incorporation paperwork is in. It's being processed by the state right now. Our EIN is coming. And I already have the legal fees paid and the paperwork mostly filled out. We're literally just waiting for the EIN number to drop on the tax-exempt status. And from consulting with lawyers and everything, they look at our intent of, yes, we're a church, but the purpose of the charity is to promote the development and adoption of decentralized technology for the purpose of encouraging, hold on, keep it quiet there. For the purpose of keeping people secure and self-reliant, and therefore that's perfectly valid. Like, there's plenty of charities that do that sort of thing.
Yeah.
The fact that we're attached to a church, what the fuck ever, it doesn't really matter. We're not evangelizing or trying to convert people, whatever.
No, I think it's cool.
Yeah, and having us as the church part makes it a little easier because we're like, okay, while we're waiting for the tax exempt status to get filed, I can't tell you it's tax exempt, but you could, start keeping track of those receipts, and then when we publish the EIN, and you can verify that, it should work to backdate it all. And I'm also looking at the point of a lot of us are nerds, and we kind of treat. I mean, this really is our religion. I mean, the best way to describe it to normies is like this is kind of a religious belief for us, and so, it totally jives for us to just, fully incorporate and do everything in that regard, and then a crap ton of First Amendment protections kick in for us also, which could definitely help out in the long run if there's court cases and other shit that comes up with what we're doing.
Mm-hmm.
Not that we're trying to scam anybody, but the sort of heavy hitters that have the sort of pull in the world that we might be worried about, to be able to fall back and say, yeah, but we also have our religious freedom here, and the second we try to claim that in a court case, then I know from precedent you can see like, oh, well, suddenly all the churches in the world suddenly come out of the woodwork and like, no, we don't give a shit what these people are doing and what you're trying to come after them for. We can't let this precedent of you overriding this occur. So we're on board with defending this thing.
Mm-hmm. All right, yeah, that's dope. I guess I was kind of curious how comparable that would be to getting like an LLC or something in some other jurisdiction. Or incorporating like a foundation, OCs or whatever, right? I think the charge idea is super dope, especially from like the marketing side of things. I think it works well.
Oh, well, thank you. And yeah, and that's where literally we are incorporating as a nonprofit. So we are literally the Church of the Chain Incorporated is the name for it. It's currently in process, hence gotta say all this stuff about church. Technically, I can't tell you, but I can quote you in the tax law, point out it's up to you, yada yada, all the stuff I just said. And we're not trying to scam.
Yeah.
Like, we literally do want to do this. Like, we're looking at this, and I talk to other people, and they're like, why the fuck are you guys doing this? You're not realizing any profit. I'm like, but we get to play with tech, and we get to meet all cool people who do cool stuff with tech, and we get to find out about all the cool stuff people are doing with tech. That's more than enough payment for us. Like, as long as we got enough to cover our bills, we're fine. Like, this, as far as we're concerned, this is gonna be fun for the rest of our lives.
Oh yeah,
so.
Hell yeah, dude. Yeah, no, that's so dope, dude. I will definitely stay updated with this space, or in this Discord.
Well,
yeah,
thank you.
I really
That's
like what you're doing, dude.
Well, thank you. That's one. We've also got the Audit DAO Discord. That's been a little dead here just because we've been so busy doing other things and haven't had much to do that. But we do, since people are interested, have a donation drive we're running right now. Now, I do want to warn people in that this thing is that we initially tried to do use a draft of the IPFS link that people were trying to define for including in NFTs. And unfortunately, when we tried that out, it worked, but something must have happened with like OpenSea between when we tested and when we went live to where they don't interpret the IPFS link properly. And so unfortunately, we're offering an NFT now for our like first donation drive. We have a special version of this where it's got a little like, kind of gold border around it to indicate this is our inaugural donation drive. So if you come in, it's 0.1 ETH the minimum. You'll get one of these NFTs. It's non-transferable. That's done for tax reasons because we didn't want to cause an Oprah effect on anybody. If you remember when she gave people cars and all those people got fucked on their taxes? Yeah, we don't want that to happen. We don't want people to get one of these things and then like 5 years from now when it's like super exclusive and worth a bunch of money, hopefully, if we succeed in this, and then some dickhead puts it up on OpenSea for like 10 grand, and then suddenly everyone that donated has to claim it as an asset and claim that appreciation. Like, no. If this thing doesn't transfer and you can't send it anywhere, that should be a pretty good case from talking with lawyers on like, okay, this isn't an asset, this is a receipt. The receipt is bound to your wallet. It can't be transferred anywhere. Literally, the function is just disabled in here. We try to do a cool thing to have a referral, but that seemed to be getting complicated and annoying. Also, wallets didn't like it. They really did not like what was going on, and it looked very strange. We wanted to avoid problems. But the intention here is that at the end of the donation drive, we're going to go through and look at the transactions for everyone that's donated. And when we execute the transaction to go through and update the metadata for everyone to fix the link on the image, we'll also add into that metadata the amount that you donated for the donation drive. And so that way, this NFT can act as your first receipt for donating, even though we're not incorporated, technically can't be that, blah, 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 the stuff I said. This will start that off, and so then you can have that, I was there at the beginning, I was in the Cool Kids Club, I donated before everyone else knew about this thing, and here's how much I donated. On top of that, this connects as my receipt. Yes, we can always look at the transaction logs, but this makes it nice and easy. And then, as we go through our demos and demo different portions, we're just going to keep swapping out our donation platform and just have different NFTs each time. And we started off with this one. This is the church logo. We're in process of filing the trademark on that. And then like the next one, we're going to iterate through and have one that starts commemorating each member of the team. And we're just going to keep iterating through that each time as we go through until we like either run out of team members. But to be honest, the way people are volunteering and helping out, like any of you guys that are chipping in and doing things, then we'll do the same thing. We'll just, you know, I'm going to give it to Jeff first, because here's the church one. Jeff is the other dev who's doing a lot of heavy lifting, and he's willing to be acknowledged. Well, the next one will probably be commemorating him. There's another dev on there, but he's quiet and doesn't really like acknowledgement, so still deciding whether or not he'd want one. But yeah, we're just going to keep going through people like that and just keep doing that. So at some point, if you guys chip in, you know, we'll have your names, we'll have it on there, we'll just get through the list eventually. And at some point when we're doing a donation drive, we'll just have you guys get an NFT too to commemorate that.
Yeah. Alright. This is dope, dude. Thanks.
Well, thank you. I'm glad you guys like it. I'm glad you guys like it. I'm glad you guys are getting value out of it. This is the sort of thing I've always lived for, and I've always liked people, you know, getting value out of the work. And to be honest, I just love doing it. So, you know, having fun with tech and then seeing people be happy with the fun I had with tech and then give me the head pats for like, you're a good Doge, I'm quite content.
Oh yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. Thank you guys. I'm very glad that you like that. We'll go ahead and call it there. I did get a couple questions on YouTube, so I'll just answer those. That's where for the ample, not a whole lot in the Twitter message. I'm guessing that might have been something as simple as they just froze it on the Qcoin side. I'm not entirely sure. Part of that could be because of how Qcoin is managing things and the fact that I gotta dig in and see exactly what they're doing, but I don't think they're properly DeFi. I think they're actually managing their own wallets and ledgers on behalf of you. It's something that, like, Dharma is a similar example. Crypto.com is a similar one, where, like, what you see in your app isn't actually your wallet. They are managing a wallet for you, and then they're displaying that result, which is why a lot of exchanges, like when Ample came out and other EFI tokens, they didn't operate properly because they weren't updating the balance they showed on the screen often enough to correlate with what's in the wallet. And so people were thinking, oh, if I put my Ample over here, then that means it doesn't rebase. Now it did. It's just that app, that platform is shit and isn't showing you the rebase. So that's what I think is going on there. Where else was I? Not sure if justified. They will probably turn the remaining admin rights. Burn the admin rights later on. Right now, they can soft edit code and edit the smothering. Big factor of rebases. Yes. Okay. So yeah, thank you for clarifying. That's probably what they're doing then, and probably still have that control, and thus they can do that. Hey, got a last question for YFMS. Vault open. Didn't ask. I can't make it that time. Okay. Then, sorry, I'm not sure where that question was there for that last one, but, are there any disadvantages? I'm not sure what disadvantages to YFMS? Not that I've seen, other than it's like any other investment, who the fuck knows what the market's going to do, and I can't predict that. I can't predict what devs are going to do either. All I can do is look at code and tell you the code works. And even then, on the stuff that people try to blame me for scams and things, I try to point out, like, I just said the code worked. I did try to point out that it was probably a bad idea to pay the dev up front for the work that they hadn't done yet, but that's what you guys want to do. I can't really tell you no. Nuclear Core. We're actually thinking of renaming this to Chain, but it's gonna be legit. We got the ORB community here wanting to redo this. We're figuring out a way to include the orb investments in here. Not to bring orb in, we're trying to make it fair, and so that way nobody's getting screwed in this. But yeah, it's going to be legit, and we're probably going to call this chain for the church, the first one. Any disadvantages? Disadvantages are where... Oh, sorry, that was about the YFMS. They froze in smart contract. Okay, so thank you for clarifying. Yeah, we talked about that. I think I can put my YFMS in YFMS Vault after a few hours after Vault is opened. Yeah, that'll be fine. Go right ahead. You don't need to be there when it happens. All we're doing is being there to oversee the move of the staking rewards that are locked up until tomorrow. Yeah, technically my time tomorrow. Well, right now it's tomorrow for me, but you know, Tuesday at 2:44 p.m. is when that'll switch over. We'll be streaming at 2 p.m. and oversee that transfer, and that should go smoothly. I looked in the code. We don't have to worry about, like, it's not anything the devs can transfer themselves or anything. It's literally just boom, off it goes to the stake and rewards vault. So we're good. Then they can't transfer it back to themselves. So here for about an hour. That huge diagram explanation. Yes, I am actually, we are going to work on building this. Build all of this stuff. This will just be one big platform that we're starting off to layer on top of core. And then we'll work out a governance mechanism for you guys so that everyone who's bought in, especially the guys that are contributing from the beginning to help get this off the ground to try to save their orb investments, because unfortunately we can't fix orb and there's not anything we can do about it, but we can model this such so that orb investors get a good stake. And by using an EFI token like this, I'm reasonably sure we'll do the math on it to be positive, but in doing all of that, then really the orb investors are effectively just going to get paid as the marketing team, because we can tune all of this such that whatever portion, you know, we dole out to orb investors to help promote that and then sell out to other people would basically just end up with, like, look, they're only going to profit as much as they can convince everyone else to buy in. If they can't convince anyone else to buy in, or it can't be a good amount, then they're just not going to get much profit out of it. And it's just going to end up being a portion of that. And we will be very, very clear on that to work out and say, all right, guys, when you're buying in, understand part of what you're doing is helping to fund this, but we're putting this time delay on a liquidity generation event to say, look, we're going to make sure we turn profit, and the whole point of doing this is such that when we get to the end, basically the orb folks that have been helping promote and shill this thing and get people to invest, and then possibly also even investing some of their own money, will really just be profiting on that case of, you know, they're basically just going to be getting a portion of the profits that start off with, and therefore it's not, we're trying to make sure that we're not going to screw anyone on some silly little Ponzi pyramid scheme, because we really do want this to be successful. We really do want this to be this perpetual money machine and keep building off of this. We'd like this to be a continual platform, basically, because ideally we can build, if we keep building this out and we keep funneling off what would normally be the dev portion or some tax or something, but instead route that off to the charity as, you know, our portion in the budget for maintaining all of this and continuing to do the development, then hopefully everyone can understand, like, all right, yeah, we understand everyone's got to get their cut, and really the orb people that are starting off this thing and helping out, they're really kind of just getting paid like a marketing team would, and they're only going to profit more, you know, if they convince more people to get in and if they buy in. Second, any dev cut is actually going to a charity, and that's going straight into the donation bucket, budget, and so, or vault and treasury, and so, like, it's not like it's going to any people directly to get paid. And hopefully if we can keep doing this thing, this will effectively just be the charity's donation platform. Like, anytime you want to donate, here's what we actually do. We'll just run it through the whole thing, and you're not realizing profits from the charity. You're buying into an investment model or investment platform that the charity's running, and part of buying in is a portion of your investment gets taxed and diverted as a donation to the charity. And so whatever you're getting is never actually coming out of the portion the charity gets. You're never actually realizing any profits from the portion that goes to the charity. It's just some of it gets funneled off to keep us going. And so then we can just keep iterating on it, and I will run this by lawyers and be absolutely positive that it'll work out that way. But like I said, because we're just taking a portion and we're just trading along with you guys like everything else, and occasionally cashing out to pay bills and everything, then since you're not realizing a profit from us, we're just trading along with you with that portion to keep, turning it over and generate more revenue for the charity. Then nobody's realizing profits, and therefore we still count as a nonprofit. So there we go. Centralized exchanges, always allergic. Yeah. No, I don't think that if you're late, you're gonna screw your rewards. Like, if you're late by a few hours, it shouldn't be a big deal. It's technically maybe a little bit, but that's where, you can, if you look at mycrypto.com, you can actually schedule a transaction to be done later. I'm not positive on all the details, so I haven't actually tried it, but there's several other tools out there that would let you schedule a transaction for later, but unfortunately those contracts haven't been deployed, so unfortunately you wouldn't have the contract hours to put in there, so I don't think a few hours is going to matter. I wouldn't worry about it too much. It's not going to fuck your rewards. Yes, centralized exchanges are evil. We are trying to eliminate them. And was this consideration made in the design? So, pardon, let me read that in more detail. Are allergic towards rebased tokens. Look at how hard Ample was excluded. From the portion here? What? On the portion of what's website? I'm not sure what you mean by what website. The YFMS staking is going to be on the YFMS or YFMoonshot.com site, and you can stake through there. We'll figure that out. Or they'll have that up there and it'll just be open. As far as the centralized exchanges, to be honest, I can hear you guys, but I kind of don't give a shit about the centralized exchanges. I don't mean to be dismissive of your point, but like, no, we hadn't considered it, and we hadn't considered from the point that we consider centralized power like the great Satan. So I really don't give a shit about making them happy and wanting them to list it. And so, whatever. If folks are worried about that, this entire model is intended to kind of continuously positively rebase, but not through some artificial inflation mechanism, by actually continually capturing more market cap and generating more value. So I think this one might be an easier case to make to the exchanges, because this thing just kind of goes up. So, but yes, we hadn't considered it. We will figure that out. We need to funnel in normie money. Centralized exchanges are needed for that. Okay. I'm not arguing your point here. I'm just saying this here that we're doing as this small proof of concept to show that the idea works is not a time where I give a shit about the centralized exchanges. So to be clear, I'm not arguing with you. I'm also not looking to get into an argument. I'm establishing right now that concern is not something we're going to address right now at this stage in the project. And I don't give a shit about trying to make those dickheads happy. My entire attitude in life is, if you want people to, if you want to do business with people, you don't try to convince them to do business with you. You make yourself so valuable that they want to come and convince you to do business with them. And that's the whole point here, is that we do this, we make this valuable enough, we build this out to be, a big enough significant presence in the marketplace, and at a certain point, centralized exchanges will come back and be like, okay, look, how do we figure out how to work with you guys? Because, you've got a few $100 million in market cap there, and we'd like to reflect that on our exchange. Like, great, you can operate on our terms, because we really don't give a shit about you guys. So, anyway, there we are. The good old P&D scams. I'm not sure what you're talking about, the pump and dump scams. We're not pump and dumping, we're designing this whole thing to make it that pump and dump is not a bad thing. We really don't give a shit if someone tries to pump and dump. In fact, that's why we have this entire buyback process with EFI, where we're buying back the EFI, and then based on the amount of EFI, the chain EFI token that they're selling back in this process to realize their portion of the profits, we're actually debasing the currency to do that, and then also taking a tax off the amount that they would be getting back, and then running that tax back through the system to reinvest that and further compound that. So it works kind of like Trib, but unlike Trib, where it drives down the floor price, this thing never really drives down the floor price. all it does is say, oh, you'd like to realize a portion of your profits? Okay, well, we'll take a tax on that, and then we'll run it back through the system so that continues compounding. So no one is ever actually taking out, like, their share. They're never taking out a portion to drive it down. It's always, look, you can only get your share, and when you try to get your share, we take a tax on that, and then compound that back through the system. And so that way, it should always keep going up. So, you know. So, pardon, the chat there is a little disjointed. If you're saying really what website, I guess in here, if you're talking about the donation, that's that one where we're taking donations for the church, giving out the non-transferable NFTs as your receipt for that. Like I said, heads up, we tried a draft of the IPFS link in that supposedly would have worked with OpenSea. And our testing it seemed to work, but then when we went live, it didn't, and we're not sure what the hell happened. We're thinking that OpenSea just, something changed, and they like turned it off or moved to a different draft or whatever. So when we come back through, we're going to update all of this, make sure we have the proper link in there, go through a HTTPS gateway to IPS or IPFS, and then also update the metadata for everyone's NFT to include what amount they donated over the drive. So if you'd like, by all means, come in. Will there be a tax exemption on the system? We have considered that. We've penciled that in as an option to say if you stake long enough, then we can forego the tax. We're also wanting to do the numbers to confirm, you know, is it possible that we could, rather than have a limit on it, to say, and actually like override the tax, to just say, well, you know, if you do wait this period of time, then yes, we're still collecting the tax, but the profits that you realize over that time should mean that you don't really care. But yes, we have considered that. That is something penciled in to consider in the math, and we'll be working that out to make sure that the way this model works is we kind of want to incentivize people to trade through, but do it in such a way, like learning from Trib and learning from ORB, but do it in such a way that they can never truly drive the price down. All they can do is take their portion of the profits out of the pool, and then a portion of that profit gets compounded back into the pool. And so the token itself should never really debase in that regard, because at the time they sell back, we're going to debase the token, the EFI, for the amount that they sold back. We're then going to, you know, go through that sell process, get that back, take the 10% off that profit that they'd be getting, run that back through the system as a buy, and when we buy, that's when we go through the entire sell process to reinvest in core. At the time that we reinvest in core, when either someone buys or someone sells, we also then gather the profits out of core and stick that in a vault. And then after they've sold, after we've taken the portion that's the tax and used that to buy back into the platform, we go through the whole process. We also then take our share of the profit out of core, put that into the core vault. That is what the EFI token is pegged to, and we're probably going to keep it at like 100 to 1 ratio of core itself. So we're not trying to hit a price point, we're just literally trying to take core and break it down into more liquid asset, and then with the EFI, and then after we put it here and before we give that back to people, that's when we call the rebase on that to say, all right, now that we've just added to the reserve that this token is matching, let's go ahead and do the rebase, and thus we should get a positive rebase. It's just depending on how much it is, we're going to get either like a greater or lesser rebase, but technically we should never actually have a debase at any point. If we've done this right and we tune it all properly and have a proper differential between the rebase amount and the debase amount, then this thing should be a non-inflationary, infinitely positively rebasing token. And the more people that buy in, the more it'll rebase upwards. And the worst that would ever happen is someone sells out and it just doesn't rebase up as much as it, and it doesn't realize as much profit. So really the worst that happens is, by our model here, if someone sells out and leaves, we just slow down the profit we're earning. We don't actually go backwards or lose anything. But again, we're working out the numbers and we'll be absolutely sure, and we'll be doing tons of testing and tons of models and everything to show that off. All right. The longer you don't unstake, the system moves upgrades. Imagine 2 years of unpaused staking. Yeah, we are considering that. That's where we want to work it in. Consider some points on all of that. We have considered those, and we will be addressing that. For anyone that's curious in coming over, we probably should have had the link there, but let me make sure you have it. It was in the tweet there, but there's the Discord where we're managing this. You're more than welcome to come in, and we're coordinating work there. If you've got ideas, by all means, hop in and let people know. If you take profit or sell out the NFT, if you take profit or sell out the NFT resets, you get your NFT, and if you restake, you start from the Lambo again. One, not NFT. This thing that we're talking about here in this design, this is not an NFT. The NFT is just a receipt for our church's first donation drive for showing off our proof of concept for the auditing platform that we're building. So those are two different things. This is not NFT. This is a actual fungible token that's EFI. The NFT is something else, and several people have an idea to layer a bond platform on top of this along with several other assets, and so that might be something similar, but we'll kind of figure that out there as we go along. Right now we just want to focus on this very basic idea here and get that realized. I do see, yes, yes, for the NFT on the donations, we have considered the leaderboard. That's where we haven't fully set that up yet. We, again, wanted to start with a very small, simple proof of concept to go through that and continue on. Oh, yeah, okay, yeah, on top of the NFT, yeah. So, yeah, actually several people, you're in great company with that great idea. Great minds think alike. Several people have an idea to kind of layer an NFT on top of this to kind of bundle the profits together in something and kind of create a long-term bond or CD, because that's basically what this is. This is a bond or a CD. And some folks have thought, well, if we have an NFT, then as this thing builds out and we add in more and more integrations with other platforms, then we're going to keep having more options of people being able to buy in, because they'll be able to buy in with different tokens based on what that platform does. And even though we keep correlating everything to the core, the chain EFI, and we can change its correlation not just on the core chain but on other things, or we could have multiple different chain EFIs and say, well, we got all of those, but here, let's bundle this up into something and represent that. But several people have that idea. We are working on that. You're not a dismissal, just the point of great minds think alike. We are on that. Please, by all means, hop over to the Discord and feel free to mention. We've got a channel there for design ideas. That's got a link to the diagram, and you can certainly contribute. Otherwise, with that, it's been a while. Yeah, been several hours talking. We've got a solid design. You guys have the PDF. I will leave you to work out yourselves for writing, and I will go off and work with devs and getting it in place. As far as how long the liquidity generation event is, I will reserve on saying a time now, and I think it's best to just say we're going to build this out. We're going to try running a few different simulations with different values for like tax and calculating all this out. And thus, we'll be able to have, rather than just try to decide one and think of it, we'll actually run tests and be able to show, all right, what would this look like over this period of transactions? And then we can try to predict, all right, well, what could we reasonably try to drive through this system to build that up, right? But with that, yep, thank you, everyone. Good night. I will head out. We'll, of course, say that we are working for tips. And I am completely working for a charity here and still volunteering. This is like draining fucking everything out of me. But by all means, any tips help. Anything helps there. Let me get you the link to the donation page here if you'd like to go through there. Anything that you donate directly to me, or, well, basically just goes straight to covering the church incorporation and maintenance costs. And if you want to get the NFT there, so Cameroon, if you want to get the NFT, go to that link that I just dropped there, donations.chain.church. And if you go there, then that's where you can get the NFT. It's just a 0.1 ETH minimum to donate. As I said, we will update it with the amount there. If you'd like to do both, you can donate any amount you go here. This will go to the church. You can donate any amount to the cyote.eth address. That will also go to the church. It's just, if you want the little commemorative NFT, heads up though, as I said, and pardon if you heard me, but I really want to emphasize that. We had an incompatibility with OpenSea. We were trying out a draft. It looked like it worked. Turns out it didn't on mainnet. And so we will come back and update this so that you do have the proper image there. Just a heads up, currently not directly working in OpenSea to show in the gallery or some of the other ones, but you will have it, and we will get that fixed. And we will, at the same time that we do that, we will go through and update everyone's metadata to include the amount that you donated during the donation drive. Also, this is only going to be available for until we do our next demo. Our plan is that it is going to be 2 weeks. And to be clear, this is our normal logo. The inaugural logo, and this one's only going to be available for this until we do the next demo, which should be 2 weeks. That is this image right here with the gold border. So right now, these 2 weeks that we're planning is the only time you'll be able to get that. After that, it is retired. It is never coming back. Tell everyone, share it around, let everyone know this. If they want to get on the ground floor and let everyone know they were one of the cool kids involved in this before, you know, we got a big name and got our article in Forbes and all that crap, then boom, there we go. So, with that, thank you everyone. No, it's not fixed. Jesus. We haven't fixed ORB. We came up with a plan to replace ORB. I'm not trying to knock you, sorry, I'm not doing it. It's been a continual thing. Everyone's coming in late, and we weren't sure what we could do. But we figured out a replacement. We're going to figure out the details. If you come join the Discord further up in the link, then you can coordinate with people and help contribute. We're doing our best to salvage that, and we think we've got a way to fairly rescue the ORB investors while not screwing over any later investors. And I think we're all reasonable enough that we're not going to, you know, seriously fuck people over. On top of that, that could be a case where we airdrop some of the tokens on there and possibly tell people, well, you know, we'll need to buy that through and do something. But again, we're working on that. We'll have it there. So again, ORB technically not fixed, but we are working on a replacement, and the ORB community seems to be invested. So awesome. Otherwise, thank you everyone. I will leave you, and good night.